Story 1. My parents kicked me out while I was pregnant because I couldn't afford rent. After my baby was born, they demanded to meet their grandson. I said no and posted their cruelty online. I'm 28, female, and recently gave birth to my son about 2 months back. I've been living with a friend in her apartment. It's pretty cramped up here, but it's a better living arrangement than my parents' house. I'm a single mom. My ex-boyfriend is the father of my child, but when I told him that I wanted to keep the baby, I gave him the choice to walk away, and he chose to walk away. He doesn't want to be a part of the child's life, and I did demand child support. However, the payments only started coming in once our son was born. The terms of our agreement stated that he'd only be obligated to pay child support after the child was actually born and until he turned 18, and only after paternity had been established. He and I have no other contact apart from him sending the amount we'd agreed upon every month. I'm a freelance photographer, so there was no way that I could go back to work after the 5th month because there were quite a few complications, and I had to depend on my savings. I moved out of my rented apartment and asked my parents if I could live with them until my son was born. My parents and I don't really have a great relationship because they don't like my choice of career, but they agreed to let me live with them since I was pregnant. They didn't discuss anything about rent with me, so I assumed that I'd be living there for free, which was a far more preferable alternative than having to spend my money on rent every month when I wasn't working. So, I lived with them for the first 2 months without any problems, and it was actually quite pleasant. I did contribute in my own little way by paying for groceries, since I was the one who was consuming the most in that house, and also contributing to the water and electric bills. It wasn't a lot, but I was trying not to be a freeloader, and even that wasn't enough. In the first week of my 7th month, my parents told me that they didn't want to bring this up with me because it was embarrassing, but they needed me to pay rent. I was a little taken aback because they hadn't talked about that when I first asked them if I could move in with them, and I thought that the whole point of me living with them would be that I wouldn't have to pay rent. But they'd assumed that I was going to pay to live with them, and it hadn't even occurred to them that I might be wanting to live here for free because I was pregnant and out of work. They thought that I was eventually going to pay and didn't want to talk to me about it because it seemed tacky to talk about money. I told them that the only reason I'd moved back in with them was because I couldn't actually afford to pay rent right now without burning through my savings, and I needed to save money because my pregnancy wasn't going to be an easy one. So, in case of any future medical emergencies, I needed to know that I could depend on my savings. Even though I did have medical insurance, it never hurt to be doubly safe, which is why I was being a little too financially conscious. But I could understand that they obviously didn't want to have a freeloader in the house. So, I told them that once my son was born and I went back to work, I'd pay them the entire amount in one go, whatever I owed them. They just needed to let me live with them for free until I went back to work and could afford to pay them the rent money. This was a negotiation that I couldn't have with other landlords, but since these were my own parents, I expected them to be a little lenient, and I definitely did intend to pay them as soon as I could afford to. I'm not a thief, but my parents were skeptical, and after some deliberation, they told me that they couldn't just let me live there for free, and if I wanted to live with them, then I certainly needed to pay rent or I'd have to leave. It felt terrible that my own parents were kicking me out over something like this, and I tried to reason with them. I even told them that I was willing to sign any legal document that they made me, agreeing to the fact that I'd pay them as soon as I went back to work, or even as soon as the child support payments started coming in. But they weren't ready to budge and told me that I could either pay them right then or I could leave. I tried to plead with them, but nothing worked, and eventually, I had to pack my bags and move in with this friend of mine. She was kind enough to let me live with her even though she herself isn't that rich. I promised her that I wouldn't be in her hair for long, but she told me that it didn't matter and made sure that I was comfortable. She took really great care of me, even more than my parents did while I was living with them. I'm very grateful for my friend because, had it not been for her, I probably would have been in big trouble. Now that the child support payments checks are being cashed, I can afford to split the rent and contribute, and once I'm fit enough to go back to work, then I'll be looking for a place of my own too. I was very upset about what my parents did because it wasn't as if either of them were poor and couldn't afford to let me live with them for a while without paying rent. My dad's a banker, and my mom works in a marketing agency, so they definitely didn't lack anything financially. They were just being selfish and kind of miserly, which is why I didn't speak to them after they kicked me out. They did try to talk to me normally even after I'd left, but I didn't respond to their calls, and neither did I reply to the texts. I just didn't have anything to say to them, and I really didn't know what they had to say to me after what had happened. So we didn't have any contact. Now that my son has finally come into the world, I've been posting about him a lot online. Not his face or anything though, and everybody knows that I'm a mother now. A lot of my relatives have contacted me to congratulate me, and one of my cousins has even come to visit. My cousin visited me last week and posted a photo of that on social media, which my parents saw and then reached out to me to ask if I was finally having visitors over. I didn't reply to that text either, so they called me, and when I didn't answer, they called me repetitively until I finally did. When I picked up the call, they demanded an explanation for why I wasn't talking to them. So I told them that the way they kicked me out of their house just because I couldn't afford to pay rent for a couple of months was heartless of them, and I didn't want to speak to them. They got all defensive and said that it wasn't fair of me to expect them to just let me live with them without contributing to the cost of living there, which I did. It was little, but I did, and as an adult I should understand and respect that. And then they said that I should just move on from it because it's all in the past and now they want to meet their grandson. I was already pretty upset about them treating this so casually. So when they said that they wanted to meet their grandson, I told them that I was an adult, and I was free to make my own decisions, and I had decided that they weren't going to see the grandson anytime soon. So now they needed to understand and respect that because I was hurt, and I didn't want to see them. Then I disconnected the call and tried to ignore them, but they kept texting me and insisted that I was overreacting because they thought what they'd done wasn't even that big of a deal, and they kept saying that it was all in the past, so I needed to move on, which got on my nerves because even if it was in the past, I didn't like it back then, and there's no reason for me to be okay with it now. Besides, I get to choose if I want to move on or not, and if I don't, then I'm not going to. So I argued with them on text for a while, and then they said that they'd talk to me when I was acting a little less crazy. So I lost it then. I was so mad that I went online and typed out a rant about how my parents had always disagreed with my career choices, which is why they kicked me out of their house when I was heavily pregnant only because they didn't agree with my choices and wanted to mess with me. So they misled me into thinking that I wouldn't need to pay rent to live with them, but then suddenly they sprung it on me 2 months later and then told me to leave when they learned that I wouldn't be able to pay just to humiliate me. Up until here, it was all fine, but then I tagged some of their coworkers in the post to make sure that they'd all be able to see this post and get to know my parents better, and I believe that that's where I went a little too far. So now all my relatives are against me and believe that I need to apologize to my parents. I have talked to a couple of my friends about this, but they think that what I did is not that bad because my parents were trying to gaslight me and didn't drop it even when they saw that I was clearly very stressed out and actually implied that I was crazy for reacting the way that I did. It's been almost a week since I made that post, and I took it down after almost 3 hours, during which a couple of people did see that post and even liked it. Only my relatives have talked to me about it, but my parents have had nothing to say, and the silence is even worse than them actually expressing how they felt about it. I would honestly rather just fight with them and get this over with, but them being silent doesn't make me feel any better about what I did. I genuinely don't understand if I should apologize to them or not, and I feel like both my relatives and my friends have a strong point. I personally have no idea what to do, and I'm completely blank, so I'm here on Reddit to ask you guys what you think I should be doing about this. I don't feel guilty for making that post, but I do feel bad about tagging their coworkers in it because they had nothing to do with this, and I dragged them into my family drama for nothing, which must have been awkward for my parents at work. Am I the asshole for tagging my parents' coworkers in a post about them? Update 1. So I ended up apologizing to my parents, not for the post in general, but for tagging their coworkers in the post. There was no need for me to do that, and I did it only out of spite, which was unfair. I sent them that text yesterday, but they still haven't replied to it yet. The only link I have with the rest of my family right now, my aunts, uncles, and cousins, is the cousin who came to visit me last week. He's the only person still talking to me because everybody else is just way too angry. He told me that the only thing that people are talking about in my family text thread is that post, and they've been talking about it for days now, which seems a little unfair because I took that post down within hours of putting it up, and this isn't even about them. This is between me and my parents. So I don't understand why they have so many opinions about it. I was going to apologize to the rest of my family, but I don't think that they deserve it or need it because I didn't say anything bad about them. The people that I did mess with, I apologized to them, and now it's up to my parents if they want to forgive me or not. But my relatives have nothing to do with this, so they need to keep their mouths shut. My cousin has sent me a couple of screenshots of whatever discussions have been going on about me in the family group, and all I can say is that I'm really glad that he's on my side because the things that are being said about me are really awful, and honestly, it all speaks more about their characters than mine. They've made really nasty comments about me being a single mother, and there's also been a lot of speculation about why exactly my ex left me, and let me just say that none of the theories have anything good to say about me. All they want to talk about is how I must have driven the guy away and how it's all my fault that my son will be growing up without a father because apparently I'm so difficult to be with, and they pity my parents for ever having to deal with someone like me. It's all just a lot of rubbish, and they're obviously only gossiping about me because they have nothing better to do with their lives. It's sad because I was actually pretty close with these people growing up. We were a close-knit family that would get together at least thrice a month. These people watched me grow up, and now these are the very same people who are making nasty comments about me just because of one post where I dared to speak about my truth. It doesn't seem fair at all, and what's worse is that my parents are a part of this text thread. They don't see anything wrong with what the others are saying about me, and not one of them has tried to defend me or take accountability. It's not even as if they're inactive. While they don't defend me or say anything bad about me, they do occasionally send laughing emojis and stuff whenever someone makes a horrible joke at my expense. It's just really nasty business, and I'm super disappointed in everyone. Update 2. It's been 4 days since I apologized to my parents for that post. Now a couple of hours ago, they finally texted me back only to tell me that they were not surprised that I'd taken things so far and said that I was a disappointment to them anyway. So they didn't care about the post. I thought that was kind of harsh, especially after I apologized to them and did the right thing, but just like they said to me, I expected the same from them too, so even I'm not surprised. I didn't want them to get away with believing that I'd apologized for just making that post, so after that reply, I specified that I was only sorry for tagging their coworkers in it and not for anything else because they definitely deserve to be called out for everything. I saw them typing for quite a while, but the text never came, and instead, they called me up and my dad spoke to me. He told me that he and my mother were extremely disappointed in my behavior, especially because I talked about them trying to humiliate me for my career choices. According to him, that hadn't been their intention at all, and it was unfair of me to post about it and make them look bad. They told me that in the aftermath of that post, there had been a lot of gossip about them at their respective workplaces, and it was very embarrassing for them. My mother had even been targeted by a couple of her coworkers and had been reprimanded by her boss, and it was very insulting. I told him that I did apologize for that, and I also took that post down within a couple of hours of posting it. I can't exactly go back in time and undo what I did, so they have to make their peace with what happened, and also they'd been very unkind to me when I was pregnant, but I'd made my peace with that and I had let them go. It was they who tried to reach out to me afterward because they wanted to see their grandson, even though they were the ones who caused me so much stress and suffering while I was pregnant by forcing me to move out, and then they tried to pass me off as crazy for being mad at them. They'd never apologized for any of it, even though, according to me, what they did to me was worse than what I did to them, so they should really count themselves lucky that they even received an apology. That didn't go down well with my dad, and he said that he could have filed a defamation lawsuit against me if he wanted to, but he forgave me because I was his only daughter, and I should be grateful for it. So I told him that I was indeed grateful, and I just expected him to be the same way because even though I had apologized to him and my mother, despite them treating me like a second-class citizen after I became an adult in the past, when I first told them that I didn't want to go to college and instead I wanted to learn photography, we had a lot of fights over it, and they used to say a lot of horrible things to me, including things like wishing I was never even born and that they hoped I got lost and never came back, and I hadn't mentioned those things in my post. If I had, then they probably wouldn't have anybody on their side right now, so I think even they should be grateful to me for not exposing them entirely. After that, the conversation just became too difficult to continue because my dad was screaming at me, and if he wasn't even willing to talk, then I didn't see any reason for me to continue bickering with him. So I hung up and blocked him. I don't know if they're going to try to get back in touch with me or not, but if they do, then I'm not going to hold back. Update 3. It's been a week since my last update and that phone call with my father, and they still haven't tried to reach out to me yet. So I'm assuming that they've given up on me entirely, and it's a huge relief because I'm already pretty stressed out. I do not need more of it. I did ask my cousin if they've been talking about me in the group, and he told me that they have indeed been a lot more active after that phone call. My relatives had moved on from the post and the topic of me and my ex-boyfriend and stuff, but now it's my parents who keep bringing it back up only so they can talk badly about me. I guess I'm their favorite topic of discussion now. And even while they're not talking to me, they definitely are talking about me, so I'm constantly on their mind. It's just a pity that it's not for any good reason. I find it so incredible that even when they were the ones who kicked out a pregnant woman, their own daughter, they still found a way to portray themselves as the victims. They were the ones who kept pushing me and gaslighting me, and when I finally snapped and made some stupid little post, it suddenly became a huge deal, and they're now the victims forever. It's all very frustrating and ridiculous, but I know that there's nothing I can do about it, so I just have to suck it up and let them go on trash-talking me because at the end of the day, they're doing it behind my back since they don't have the guts to say any of it to my face. My cousin is on my side, and I have great friends. I'm also hoping to go back to work in a couple of days to get my life back on track, so I'm not going to worry about any of these irrelevant people and only focus on myself. Update 4. I finally started working again today, and due to some weird miracle, today was the day that my parents chose to come visit me at my friend's place. My friend was at work, and I dropped my son off at another friend's place for a couple of hours since I was at work. So there was nobody at home, and I don't check my phone unless it's an emergency while I'm working. So I didn't even realize that my parents were waiting outside her apartment. They kept texting me, my mom, since my dad's blocked, for almost an hour before they finally decided to leave, and I only discovered it after I was done with my work and it was time for me to go back home. All the texts were about how this was super insulting for them because they were visiting to see their grandson for the first time, and I didn't even have the courtesy to be at home to receive them. They said that not only was I a terrible daughter, but I was also a terrible mother for taking my son with me to work, which is what they assumed I did. The texts were all very entitled and bipolar because in one text they were telling me that I was a horrible human being, and in the very next one, they were talking about how desperate they were to see me and their grandson and that it was unfair that I was depriving them of that opportunity. I cannot even begin to understand why they'd expect me to let them visit me or meet my son after everything that they'd said to me and about me behind my back. I'm honestly just glad that I wasn't at home, and I regret even telling them where I was going when I first left. I really shouldn't have done that, but I wasn't thinking straight at the time, but now this is just more of a reason for me to move out as quickly as I can. I'm going to miss my friend, but I don't want to bother her any longer, and I know that if my parents are aware of where I'm living, then they'll definitely try to come to visit me again, and I certainly don't want to create any trouble for my friend. Update 5. Hi guys. So I moved into my own apartment last week. Yeah, it finally happened, and I'm really thankful for everything that I have. My friend was pretty sad to watch me go, but she understood, and I can't say that she'll miss any of my son's midnight crying sessions. My own place is a lot smaller, but this is all I can afford right now, and I know that as I continue to work, I'll get back to where I was in no time. It's been a month since my last update, and I blocked both my parents on every platform possible after they tried to visit me, because I didn't want them around. They haven't tried to get in touch with me directly again after that, and I have my fingers crossed that they won't be able to find out where I am. I changed my phone number, and I told my friend that if my parents ever show up at her apartment, she definitely doesn't need to open the door, and if they try to bother her, then she's free to call the cops. I'm just hoping that it doesn't come to that. Now it's just me and my son, and we're definitely going to make it big. I'm just so sure of it. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Reluctantly, I babysat my stepbrother's kids every evening, but one day I called his wife and told her that I couldn't babysit every day. Now she has filed for divorce, and I got blamed for ruining his marriage. Hi guys, so my stepbrother, Aaron, 36M, got married 8 years ago, and he has 2 kids. His oldest is his daughter, 5 years old, and his son is just 3 years old. I, 34F, have never been very close with him since it's not like we grew up together. My parents separated when I was very little, and they had shared custody of me. My dad started dating my stepmom when I was 17, so I was pretty grown up by then, and so was Aaron. That's why we never felt very close, and we never even lived together as a family at any point because by the time that my stepmom moved in with my dad, I had moved out for college. I was lucky enough to get a job right afterward, so I just never looked back, and since then, I've been living on my own. Don't get me wrong. I don't have any issues with my stepmom, and the same goes for Aaron, but I wouldn't exactly refer to them as my family since we are not that close. They are my father's family, and I respect that, but that's about it. However, like I had said, we had never been on bad terms, and recently Aaron moved to my city with his family 10 days ago. He has a new project that he's working on here and will be living here for maybe a year or more. It was pretty convenient for his wife as well because his in-laws also live here, and since his father-in-law is pretty sick, his wife could stay with her family during the day until he came back home from work. My dad told me that he wanted me to show him around and help him settle in, and I did that. I assumed that after that, my responsibilities would be over as I was just trying to be nice, but for some reason, Aaron assumed that I was just there at his beck and call at all times and started dumping his kids onto me every evening. This started almost 7 days ago. He just showed up at my house with his children since I had just given him my number and address in case he needed help with anything, and asked me to babysit them for an hour or so, and he would be back as soon as possible. He told me that he had some urgent work at the office, so he had to go back, and since his wife had decided to spend the evenings with her parents because her father's health had been deteriorating, he couldn't exactly expect her to watch the kids either. They were new here, so they didn't have a sitter, so they were relying on me. To be honest, I'm not one for kids, but because he was at work and he was new to the city, I agreed to help him out until he found a sitter. I was not happy about this arrangement in the slightest because even though I work from home, it's still working. After I'm done, I really don't feel like doing anything but spending time alone. The kids are nice and I have to give credit where it's due. Aaron did not leave the kids at my place for more than an hour and a half, and he was always very punctual in picking them back up and would thank me for looking out for them. But this started happening every day, and for the past 7 days I didn't have a moment to myself during the evenings. 2 days ago, I even told Aaron that I needed him to look for a sitter because I couldn't do this every day, and he promised me that he would. Then yesterday, I had plans to go out with my friends in the evening since it was a Sunday, and I had even told Aaron about it in the morning. I had told him that I would not be able to take care of his kids this evening, even though it was a Saturday, and I knew that his job didn't require him to come in on a Saturday, but just to be on the safe side, I had still told him. But then the bell still rang at the same time as usual, and I was just starting to do my makeup. When I went to the door, I already had a speech prepared in my head, and I knew that as soon as I opened the door, I was going to tell Aaron that I would not be able to take care of his children today since I had already told him about my plans. But I never got the opportunity to do so since he had just dropped his children at my door. And as soon as I opened the door to tell him that I wouldn't be able to watch them, he had driven off in his car and left me with the kids. It was quite clever of him, I'll have to give him that. He stayed outside my house in his car just long enough to see me open the door and then he left. He had left a note with his daughter that said, "Sorry." But it did not mean anything to me because now I would have to cancel the plans that I had made. I was very upset, and I was even more angry that he had tried to outsmart me. I tried to call him to get his kids, but his phone was switched off. So in my anger, I decided to call up his wife. She and I have never interacted much. I've only met her at their wedding and then a couple of times on the holidays. But I did get her phone number a couple of days ago when they moved here, so I called her up and I told her that for the past week, Aaron had been dropping their children off at my place every single day at the same time, and then he would just be gone for an hour or so. While I knew that I had agreed to babysit for them until they had found somebody else, I couldn't do it on weekends as well, and told her he had dropped the kids off at my place even though I had told him that I wouldn't be free to watch them today, and I was just really upset about all of this. I told her I could understand that they were new to the place and needed some time to settle in, but this was no way to behave, and that I couldn't encourage this anymore. So I needed her to come pick her children up. She did not say much. She just said, "Okay," and then she told me that she would be coming over in a while to pick the kids up. After half an hour, she showed up at my door. She was very sullen, and we did not even speak. The kids left with her, and then I did not check my phone since I was going out drinking with my friends, and I only do this sort of thing once or twice a month, maybe, so I like to stay away from my phone and live in the moment. I did not receive any notifications from anyone since my phone was on Do Not Disturb mode last night, and I only checked my phone this morning. I had like 1,000 missed calls and messages and voicemails from everyone. My dad, Aaron, and even my stepmom, which was weird because she and I don't usually speak to each other much unless it's an emergency. I was very confused, so before I called anybody back, I decided to go through some of the messages that these people had sent me. Most of them were accusations about me being an idiot and saying that I had no need to talk to Aaron's wife about any of what was going on. I was still very confused, so I decided to call back my father first, And as soon as I called him, he started yelling at me and said that I had ruined Aaron's marriage. Apparently, even then, I had no idea what he was talking about, and my father finally told me that because of my phone call, his wife had been able to figure out that he was not going out to the park with the kids like he had been telling her, and had actually been dropping them off at my place and taking off by himself instead. On top of that, Aaron had also lied to me about going back to the office for work because after my phone call, his wife had contacted a coworker of his, and he had told her that nobody from their department really needed to come into work on Sundays, and he definitely hadn't. Just to double-check, she had even driven there herself to check if his car was at his workplace or not, and it was not there. She even spoke to two women who happened to be walking out of the office building, and they said that nobody really comes into work after they have left for the day, and she even specified what kind of car Aaron drives, and they made it very clear that for the past 7 days, he had come to work on time and left exactly at 5 o'clock, but he had never come back after leaving like he was claiming he had to. For the past 1 week, they also told her that Aaron had just started working there, so his workload was not as much as the others, and he was always able to wrap up his work within office hours and would leave on time, so they did not know why exactly he would have any need to come back at all, much less coming on the weekend. So clearly he had been lying, and now because of the phone call that I made, his lies had been caught and she had confronted him, but he was refusing to tell her the truth, and so she was threatening to leave him and take their kids with her. She had already moved out with the kids last night to stay with her parents, and now he was in a mess. I had also found it pretty weird that he would have to go back to work after leaving for the day every single day for 1 week. That really did not make any sense to me, but I did not question it because it did not seem like my business, and I have a lot on my plate to worry about as well, so why would I care about that? But now after I heard all of this from my father, I realized that Aaron had lied about a lot of things to a lot of people, and since he was getting caught now, he was blaming me for everything. So I told my father that while it was very sad that his wife had decided to end his marriage because he had been lying to her, even though it was exactly what he deserved, and I probably would have done the same thing if I was in her place, I did not see how I had anything to do with this. So my father told me that if I had never made the phone call to his wife, none of this would have ever happened. It was quite exasperating and unreasonable, so I told him that I had to make that phone call because I have a life and I have plans of my own as well, and I was not going to be apologetic for living my life on my own terms. But he started telling me that I had betrayed my family and said that I should have just stayed with the kids and told Aaron off when he came to pick them up instead of contacting his wife and going out of my way to create trouble for him. It was really annoying because he was trying to pin the blame of this entire situation on me, so I flared up and told him that I was not the one who had been lying to my partner, so if anything, he should be the one to blame, and Aaron should be the one getting yelled at right now, not me. But he just kept saying that what I had done was not right for the family and that I needed to apologize to Aaron because he was pretty upset about what was going on. I told him that I did not owe anybody any apologies, and he should probably be telling Aaron all of this right now because he is the one who needs to sort out his life. Then my father said that I was his family, and this is not what families do to each other. I said that he was definitely not my family, but just my dad's family. That caught him off, and he asked me if I really did not consider Aaron my family, and I reiterated that by saying that I did not. He then asked me if I even considered his wife as family, and I still said no because it's the truth. I don't. I did not grow up with them. They never bothered to build a strong relationship with me, and I was fine with it, but at the same time it also means that I don't consider them my family. It was very simple, and I really don't think that I said anything that offensive. It's not like they consider me very close to them either, so what's the big deal? But after I said that, my dad started sounding very curt and told me that if that's what I thought, then we had nothing further to discuss and hung up on me. I was genuinely confused, and a couple of minutes after he ended that phone call, he texted me that he had always expected me to respect him and the people that he loved and at least give them a chance, but I had obviously made up my mind, and I had decided that I was not going to respect my stepmom and stepbrother, and he owed certain things to them as well. So he had decided not to speak to me either because what I had done to Aaron was not acceptable. He also brought up the fact that Aaron was not even putting me through much of an inconvenience. I was working from home anyway, and he would always drop the kids off after I was done with work, and he would pick them up within just an hour, so what I did was not nice. And now I don't even understand what to do. Am I the a-hole for calling my stepbrother's wife to pick their kids up because I did not want to babysit them? Update 1. So I decided not to apologize to Aaron because my dad was just trying to guilt-trip me, and I see that now. It's been a couple of days since we last spoke, and I have not received any message from him since then. I know for a fact that he is immensely pissed off at me, but there's not much that I can do. I did talk to my mother about this, and she told me that my dad was being unreasonable, and she almost never has anything bad to say about my dad since they are still on good terms. But this time, she said that my father was acting irrationally and told me that she would speak to him. Yesterday, she called me up in the afternoon and told me that she had spoken to my father on the phone, and they had ended up in a fight as well over this because she had taken my side, and he had told her that she was encouraging the wrong thing. So they ended up fighting, and now they are not talking to each other anymore either. The fight must have been bad because when my mother called me yesterday, she was really pissed off, and given her temperament, she rarely ever takes that tone with anybody. But when I was talking to her, she told me that she was not going to talk to my father again until he had apologized to me because the things that he had said were absolutely illogical and unfair. Apparently, he had called me a spoiled brat and said that I had grown up to be somebody who could not care about anybody apart from myself, and that's why I had ratted out my stepbrother without even considering the consequences of what I was doing. When my mother had tried to defend me, my dad had cut her off and yelled at her, saying that if she was on my side here, they had nothing more to discuss because he did not want to speak to anybody who was encouraging my behavior. When my mom told me about all of this, I was really pissed off, and even though initially I thought that I would forgive my father if he came to his senses and apologized to me, now I'm not so sure. I don't think I'm going to talk to him even if he apologizes because the things that he said are firstly not even true, and more importantly, they are very hurtful as well, and I'm not a child, so he can't say whatever he wants to and get away with it. I'm a grown woman. I have my own life, and if my dad is going to be a jerk to me, I'm just going to cut him out of my life and move on. Update 2. So a lot of things have happened since my last update. Last evening, I finally received a message from my dad. It has been almost 2 weeks since we last spoke to each other. After that, I had not interacted with him since my mother had told me a lot of things that he had said about me, and I had no interest in speaking to him after that. But I had forgotten to block him, so he sent me a message saying that Aaron's wife had apparently served him with divorce papers just a couple of days back, and he was devastated. That really annoyed me because I don't know why he was giving me an update on the situation when I hadn't even asked about it. I knew that he was trying to rub it in and make it seem like it was my fault, so I just ignored it, and I blocked his number after that message. But then he called me up from his work number and asked me if I had no shame or if I did not have any feelings at all because here my brother was getting divorced because of me, and even then, I could not even bring myself to apologize, much less try to fix the situation. I was really annoyed with him at that point, so I told him that I did not find anything in this situation to feel ashamed of myself or even think that I deserved to feel guilty. I also told him that I was still not going to apologize. He was getting divorced because of his own lies, and I did not ask him to do that. I had only inadvertently exposed his lies, not even on purpose, and I will not even count that as a mistake because if he was acting that way, he probably did not deserve his wife. My father started talking about family loyalty once again, and I cut him off, saying that I had heard of the things that he had said to my mother about me, and beyond this point I really had no interest in speaking to him anymore. I told him that if he wanted to support a liar, that was his personal choice, but he should not expect me to do the same because, like I had said earlier, I did not count them as my family, so family loyalty is pretty much out of the question. It's his family, he can be loyal to it if he wants to, but again, he should also take into consideration the fact that Aaron is a liar, and if he was yelling at my mother for encouraging my behavior, I could question him for encouraging Aaron's behavior as well. He started fumbling his words after that, so I took that opportunity and hung up on him. Then I blocked that number that he had called me from as well, but something tells me that he's not going to stop at this, and he's going to keep calling me again and again until I apologize or at least just do something about this. Anyway, while I did not hear from my father after that phone call last evening, I did receive a visit from Aaron this morning at around 7. I'm usually up by then to start my day with a jog and a workout session and was about to leave for my jog when the bell rang. And when I saw that it was Aaron, I was really annoyed. I told him that it was really early in the morning for any drama, and I didn't want to interact with him right now. I could see through the window that he looked like he was in bad shape. His shoulders were all slouched, and it looked like he hadn't slept in days, so he was definitely not coming with good news. It was going to be another painful discussion about his life. I did not want that so early in the morning, so I asked him to please leave. I did not want to be rude to him because honestly, I felt that the sight of him was just pitiful, but he told me that he had something really important to discuss with me, so he just wanted me to open up the door to him once, and after that he would not bother me again. When he was speaking to me, he was talking to me very calmly, unlike my dad, who has only been yelling at me ever since we got into this fight. And also, I really just felt bad for him, so I let him in. It was very awkward, and I told him that I was sorry to hear what was going on in his life, but I said it very carefully so as not to make him think that I was actually apologizing for calling his wife, because I was not, and I didn't even want him to think that on accident and pass that message on to my father. Anyway, he told me that there had been a lot of arguments about the divorce and stuff for the last couple of days, but finally his wife had blocked him, and he had been served. I already knew that, but then he said that he had been thinking about not contesting the divorce. That was a bit surprising for me because if he had been fighting for his marriage so far, I didn't understand why he was giving up now. But that's none of my business, and I just waited for him to come to the point of his visit. Finally, he told me that in the divorce petition, his wife was asking for a lot because she thought that he was having an affair, which he clarified was not the case, and that just made things even more bizarre because if he was not having an affair, then why was he lying to everyone about where he was going after he dumped his kids off at my place? Anyway, I did not ask about it because, again, not my business. He finally told me that the reason he was visiting me was because he wanted me to take his side during the divorce. He went on to say that all that I had to do was just record a testimonial for him saying that he was a good father and that apart from the one day that I had called his wife, there had been absolutely no trouble handling his children for him and that he had been very regular about the timings as well, that he would drop them off and pick them up at the same time, so it had never been any inconvenience to me. Honestly, I wouldn't have had a problem with saying that, but it was just bugging me that he was claiming that he was not cheating on his wife. If he was not doing that, then what was he even doing? On top of that, I just did not feel like involving myself in something like this, so I told him that I really wanted to wish him luck with the divorce, but I was not going to involve myself in this directly. Aaron looked really annoyed with me and told me that because he was in this situation because of me, the least I could do for him was this. When he said that, I very politely reminded him that he was not stuck in this situation because of me, but because he had lied to his wife and left his kids at my house without even bothering to make sure that I was fine with it. Then he had the decency to look ashamed, but he also said that he knew that he had screwed up, and he was paying for it heavily already. I just had to do this favor for him one last time. I told him that I would think about it, but that was only to get him out of my hair at that point because I just wanted to have some time to myself. Then I stood up, indicating that it was time for him to leave, but he continued to sit on my couch. Then, after almost 10 seconds, he finally revealed the reason why he had been missing on those days. Apparently, he was not going out of his way to see some affair partner, but his half-sister, who also happens to be my half-sister as well. I was genuinely shocked when he said that, and I immediately accused him of lying to me. But when he looked up, he told me that this was the reason why I was not told anything so far. He said that my stepmom and my dad had had a child, and their affair had actually been going on much longer before the divorce. For context, my parents have been divorced for 28 years, and this half-sister that Aaron was referring to was 32 years old. But since my stepmom and my dad were not ready to end their respective marriages at the time, they decided to pretend that the baby was her husband's. However, his biological father eventually figured out that the child was not his and that she had been having an affair, so he left, and they ended up getting divorced. But nobody told my mother anything about this. As for the baby, they put her up for adoption, and that was it. So far, it was just my mother and I who had been in the dark about these things, and my dad got really lucky when my mother herself suggested getting a divorce 2 years after my dad got my stepmom pregnant, saying that she was not happy in this marriage anymore and wanted to move on with her life. The situation pretty much fixed itself, and so as to make sure that things did not seem suspicious, my dad kept his relationship with my stepmom under wraps for the next couple of years until I turned 17, and then they eventually got married. It was a brilliant plan, I have to give him that, no harm, no foul. But recently, Aaron found out about our half-sister and decided that he wanted to build a relationship with her, which is why he had been visiting her. His wife knew the truth, and that's why they had been contemplating the divorce. But eventually, she decided to go through with the divorce because she was still not fully convinced that he wasn't lying to her. And now he was enlisting my help for this because he didn't know anybody here who would be able to help him out. But I told him that after everything that I had found out just then, I could not offer him anything but luck. It was a lot of information to get, so I told him that I needed to process this and think about it, and I would speak to him later. Then when he saw that I was really reeling from getting to know about my dad's dishonesty, He finally left and told me that he was sorry that I had to find out this way because this was so big, but he really had no other choice. Anyway, since then, I haven't done anything because everything is just so hazy to me right now. I can't figure out a way to tell my mom about this, but I know that I'll have to. I don't even think that I have come to terms with all of this myself, but the photos and proof that Aaron showed me were pretty substantial, and I can't exactly deny it. So this is it. Update 3. Hi, so it's been a couple of weeks since my last update. A lot of you must be wondering if I did end up telling my mother. And yeah, I did. I told her everything that I had found out, and initially, just like me, she refused to believe it, but I told her that I had seen the proof, and after a conversation with my father, she realized that it was the truth. Since then, we have cut off everybody. I'm not speaking to my father, and I also told Aaron that I was not going to be helping him out with his divorce. I just did not want anything to do with his side of the family, and I don't know if I'm going to reach out to my sister. But for now, everything is too fresh for me to move past it. My mother and I are just keeping to ourselves for now, and she's the only family I have as of now. All of this genuinely sucks, but I'm trying to move on little by little and build my trust back in people again. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I will leave my adoptive family overnight. All I'll leave them there will be a letter. I was adopted by a family when I was 5. I don't know my biological parents. The family already had 3 children, 3 girls. Apparently, after the first girl, they tried for a boy, but it always ended up being a girl. So, after 3 girls, they adopted me to finally have a son. In the first few years of my life, they treated us all well. My sisters, however, were never able to accept me. They saw me as an outsider who doesn't belong in the family. Actually, it was the oldest one, called Alicia, who poisoned the other 2, called Maria and Juliet, against me by telling them that our parents would treat me better because I was a boy, which wasn't true. In fact, all 3 of them protested against me getting a room on the same floor as them, and my parents gave in. There was a spare room in the basement where I had to sleep. Now this, however, just led to them making fun of me, calling me names like cellar rat, and many more things. I just shrugged it off, assuming that's how siblings treated each other. But I realized that having my sleeping room in the basement somehow also affected the way my parents treated me. Sleeping down there felt like I was out of sight for them. They lost interest in me, and I became less significant and important, while on the other hand, they started to focus more on my sisters. When I was 13, they completely lost interest in me. It was like I was a homeless person living in the basement. They missed all the appointments I had, they didn't care about my grades, they never even called me to eat. Sometimes I would come upstairs and see how they already took away the plates. If I was lucky, there were leftovers that I could eat. Do you think I got presents for my birthday? No, because they didn't even know my birthday in the first place. Last Christmas, they said they forgot to buy presents for me, saying they would go shopping with me the next few weeks to get me something, which, as you might expect, never happened. I don't feel despised towards my sisters. I'm glad they have a home where they are cared for and that they can feel loved. I just don't understand why they would adopt me if they would just throw me away like a piece of paper. I think they just wanted to have this feeling of having a son for some time, but then realized they could never love me like one of their own, and putting me into the basement was the last straw. That is when they completely banished me from their minds, and I just can't do this anymore. I decided to pack my things and leave. I will do it tonight. I'll stay at a friend's house for a while and try to look for a job that hopefully gets me enough money so that I can rent an apartment, and after that I will never look back. I decided to leave a letter behind in my room. I wouldn't be surprised if they never even find it, let alone notice that I'm gone. I use a throwaway for this, but I actually don't know why. I thought I didn't want them to see this, but now that I think about it, I could send them this post. I don't know why I even write this in here in the first place. I feel so desperate. Maybe I want this because I hope that someone is interested in me and my story. Update 1. I will leave my adoptive family overnight. All I'll leave them there will be a letter. I didn't expect to give you an update so quickly, but in the brief time span between my post yesterday and this one right here, so many things happened that I have to update you right now. Let's start by what happened yesterday. First of all, I never expected my post to blow up like this. This is absolutely insane. I tried to read all of your comments and answer all direct messages, but it's just too many, so I'm sorry if I ignored you. Many of you had great advice, such as taking all my documents with me and going to the police, which I wanted to do today. Let's go through everything that happened chronologically. After reading through many comments, I decided to take my documents with me. So, in the evening, before my adoptive parents went to bed, I snuck into their bedroom and took all the documents that I could find and waited for nightfall. I packed my things and left when all of them were asleep. Everything went as planned. I silently left the house and went to my best friend's home. He had an apartment in a neighboring city, so I had to walk for a while. I arrived at his apartment between 2 and 3 a.m. He had a spare bedroom that he used for visitors who might want to stay for the night. We agreed that I could live with him as long as I want. He only expected me to find a job quickly, and if I do that, he wants me to help him pay the rent for it. I was fine with that. I slept through the night into the morning. I started looking for jobs immediately. But now, a few hours later, something more than interesting happened. While I was on his laptop, still looking through the online job advertisements and collecting them, the doorbell rang. He opened the door, and I heard a familiar voice, but it wasn't one of my parents. It was one of my sisters, Maria to be exact, the middle sister. I heard how she asked if I was here. He wanted to lie for me, but I decided to talk to her to find out what she wanted. So I appeared behind him, and she leaned in and said, "Thank God you're here," and hugged me. I was completely overwhelmed and surprised and didn't know what to say. And then she told me how she found me, and this is where things get more interesting. She told me that this morning, a way too familiar sounding story appeared on her TikTok For You page. Apparently, my story was shared by a TikTok account who actually had quite a big audience. And she became even more suspicious of the situation when her and the names of her sisters were also mentioned. To be sure about the situation, she went in the basement and into my room, where she found the room mostly empty and of course my letter. I mentioned in the story that I would stay with a friend, so she went out looking for me, telling our parents she was about to visit a friend. She said she drove to 2 different houses before finding the correct address. She apparently visited 2 other friends of mine before finding the correct apartment. Apparently, she also took the letter with her. She said she hasn't showed them the letter yet and wanted to talk to me first. No one besides her knew where I was or what I did the last night. She apologized to me and offered to talk with me on my side to our parents. She explained that the way I talked about her in the original post made her feel bad. She said she never hated me or anything. She admitted that she also protested against me having a room on their floor, but just because of Alicia's influence on her and because she believed her lies when she was younger. Now that I think about it, unlike Alicia and Juliet, she never called me bad names. She said that Juliet probably is also just insufferable because of how Alicia manipulated her. She said she never realized how badly I was treated. She never gave a second thought about me because Alicia spread rumors that I was just very socially awkward and overall didn't like any of them and that I would just lock myself inside the basement like the worst introvert and all of that. And as a reason for her claim, she just reminded them that I was adopted and that is why I would try to make myself the outsider. I said to her that this might explain why she and Juliet might have been like that to me, but not why my parents would have behaved that way. She replied that she also can just make claims here without any proof, but she thinks it's because even between them, Alicia is the golden child as the firstborn. Her and Juliet are only the failed attempts of them having a boy, and her being the golden child made it easier for her to manipulate both of them into believing the lies she told them. Then she said that she knows that mom and dad would be pretty easy to manipulate if you know how. And then she gave me 4 options. 1. I could come with her right now and talk with her to my parents. 2. She would let me think about it and leave but not tell my parents. 3. I refused to go back with her entirely, but she would tell them about the letter without telling them where to find me. 4. I refused to go back with her entirely, but she would pretend to not know anything but maybe stay in contact with me. I picked option 2, and she gave me her number. She said that if I decide to give them a chance, she would support me, but she would understand if I refused to. And now we are here. I don't know what to do. I would lie if I say I wasn't tempted to give them a chance, but on the other hand, if it's true that Alicia is the one behind all of that, I don't know if I want to deal with her again. Update 2. I will leave my adoptive family overnight. I'll leave them there will be a letter. I'll start this by saying that many of your comments suggested that Maria could have potentially manipulated me and that I shouldn't trust her just now, which I understand. I decided to stay with my friend, especially since I applied for so many jobs yesterday, and I think I could find one in no time, so there is no reason for me to get back with them as an 18-year-old. But these are just side facts. I would have not given you an update if nothing had happened. Apparently, my adoptive parents did realize I was gone recently, so they started looking for me. They are sure that Maria knew where I was, considering she had my letter with her. I'm currently only in contact with Maria, who told me all of this. Apparently, my parents tried asking her about my whereabouts and grounded her after she refused to tell them. Yes, they grounded a 21-year-old. Couldn't believe it either. As many of you suggested, I went to the police so they couldn't file a missing report about me. Meanwhile, Alicia started to spread rumors again. Apparently, she used my disappearance as proof that she was right with everything, and Juliet believes every single word. She is completely under Alicia's control. Even though I didn't want to see them again, I kind of want to give Maria a chance. I asked my friend if, hypothetically, Maria could stay with us too. He raised an eyebrow and said, "Only if she wants to sleep on the couch." And then he asked me why I want her here in the first place. The thing is, if she cares about me, then I don't want her to stay with his family. He was annoyed but said yes. I texted her asking if she'd consider moving out and offered her to stay with me and my friend. Before you say it, I know it seems like a way too quick decision, but I truly think that Maria is not like the rest of them. Many of you said that she probably wanted to save face, but someone wouldn't go through all that to find me and then protect me by keeping my whereabouts a secret if they just wanted to save face, considering that I never mentioned their last names or where they live, so it's not like anyone could have known it was her in real life. I honestly think that my story opened her eyes. She answered by asking if I was for real and that she wasn't sure. I reminded her that she is 21 and probably should think about moving out of our parents' house anyway, and that she was grounded at her age was pretty effed up. They treat their children like 10-year-olds even if they are adults. She said she is not denying that she would like that because apparently Alicia also started to spread lies about her too because of how she behaves towards me. She overheard how she was talking to her friends about her, and that she was called the complicit of a maniac. Still don't know why Alicia hates me so much, but I don't care about it. She said she doesn't think it's a bad idea, but she wants to find a job to have financial stability first before moving out. That was fair enough, and my friend was much happier this way too. He said he isn't really excited about having another jobless person living with him, but he said that if she has a job, he'd gladly help her. One more reason why I think that Maria moving out isn't a bad idea is because if both her and me got a job, we could probably rent an apartment together in no time and would not have any financial problems. So yeah, that's it for now. Let's see what happens in the future. I want to mention one more thing. On my last post, some people were talking badly about the TikTok account that shared my story. Please don't talk badly about the account. They didn't know it would end like that, and I don't have a problem with anyone sharing my story. Thank you for reading. Edit. Some of you pointed out the situation with my friend. Believe me, if I wasn't sure he was okay with it, I would not have suggested it. He was unsure about the offer at first because I hadn't asked him before asking her, so of course he thought it was just another jobless person. But like I said, he is fine with it as long as she has a job, and I'm definitely grateful for what he is doing, and I will repay his kindness. Don't worry about that. What he does should not be taken for granted, and I know that. You're also right that offering her to live in his apartment is going a bit far. But like I said, he is an amazing person. I wouldn't do it if I knew he wasn't 100% okay with it. Update 3. I will leave my adoptive family overnight. I'll leave them, there will be a letter. I want to keep you updated, so here I am again. Today, I got a call from Alicia, and apparently nothing is what it seems to be. I still try to process this call. I've been in contact with Maria for a few days, and I truly thought she was different, but she was just like the others. When I got the call today, it was an unknown number. I froze when I heard Alicia's voice. She screamed at me, saying, "Who the hell do I think I am to talk about her like that?" We had a little argument but somehow managed to calm down. I thought about hanging up, but I wondered what she wanted from me. She told me to grow up. I was never part of their family, according to her, and that I should have known it since the beginning and stopped crying about it now when I could have done something about it the entire time. I admit I was angry and not very nice. I told her to go EF herself and told her I was going to get Maria out of there too because both of us wouldn't deserve a life around someone like her. Then she said something I guess she shouldn't have said. She said that I was ridiculous because Maria was a part of all of this theater. And if I truly thought Mom and Dad cared about me, then she accused me of trying to ruin her family and told me what really happened after I left. They tried to save their face. Maria hasn't told me the full story. Apparently, it's true that she was the one who found my story on TikTok by accident, and she also found the letter first. In Maria's version of the story, she lied to Mom and Dad and told them she was about to visit her friend when she was looking for me, and they didn't know about it. But Alicia said that Maria told Mom and Dad immediately after finding my letter. This also answers the question, how Maria knew about my friend's address. I never told this to anyone except my adoptive mom. They thought that if they fooled me into thinking I had someone on my side, it would be easier for them to get to me because they assumed I probably wouldn't open the door for them. I couldn't believe it and asked why I would believe someone like her, to which she replied, "Who do you think gave me your number?" Then she demanded me to take down my posts and hung up. Honestly, I kind of believe her, but it also proves that they are all the same. They tried to manipulate me to get back with them to save their reputation. Many of you guys warned me about this, but even after everything that happened, I didn't want to believe someone could be this evil. But that's it. I will cut any contact with them. I am not taking my posts down. Everyone deserves to know what these people are. I cannot believe I tried so desperately to see the good in them. Oh, some of you might want to know that I also apologized to my friend for offering a room that wasn't mine to begin with. I understand your critique about this, and you are right, I crossed the line there. With that being said, the chapter Adoptive Family is hopefully closed now. I'll try to focus on my life, and maybe someday I will find someone who truly loves me. I might keep you updated if anything is going to happen, but I think this could as well be the last post of this throwaway account. Wish me luck. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My family kept quiet for months about my best friend getting pregnant with my boyfriend's baby while they helped her through pregnancy instead of me, so I finally decided to run away. This is a long story that really started some 15 years ago. It really impacted my 33F life, so please bear with me. When I was 18 and in my senior year of high school, I really believed my life was on a good track. I lived with my parents and 4 siblings, 23M, 22M, 20F, 14F, and spent most of my days hanging out with my best friend, Ashley, 18F, and or my boyfriend of 3 years, Kyle, 20M. Both Ashley's and Kyle's parents were best friends with my parents, so I knew both of them since we were in diapers. We spent holidays together, birthdays, and visited each other all the time as we lived in the same town. Ashley had been my friend for 18 years, and she truly was the person I trusted with everything. Sometimes our parents would joke that we were connected by the hip as we were together all the time. I had been dating Kyle for the last 3 years. I believed he was the love of my life and the one I would eventually marry. We were quite serious and even talked about getting married after he finished college. He was a sophomore at that point. Although I had every plan on going to university, I was quite content with the idea of being married to Kyle and being a stay-at-home mom. My parents loved Kyle and supported our relationship. I really was happy. I think I should note here that my sister, 20F, was also dating Kyle's brother, 23M, and that all our siblings were very close. One day at the beginning of the school year, I noticed that Ashley was being very melancholic and detached. After a while of prodding, she told me she was pregnant. I was very surprised because I didn't know she and her boyfriend broke up a while ago, and I didn't know she had anyone else like that in her life. I asked her who the father was, and she didn't want to talk about it, but in a way implied that the ex was the father. She was absolutely distraught, so I dropped the topic and just consoled her. I was with her when she told her family, and while her parents were disappointed, they promised to support her in whatever she decided. They tried to make her share the dad's name, but she refused and made me promise to stay quiet. They did not know she had a boyfriend at one point. I was there for her for the next 9 months. I went with her for ultrasounds, doctor's appointments. I was there for her when she was bullied in school for being pregnant. I helped her set up the nursery. I was there when she was sick or just felt down. I held a baby shower for her, went shopping with her, and I even took some parenting classes with her. We chose names together, and she even asked me to be with her in the delivery room. I noticed that the pregnancy was really taking a toll on her emotionally and physically, and I tried to support her in every way possible. She was my best friend, always there for me, and I loved her. Some 2 weeks before her due date, I went to the mall to run some errands and ran into her ex. Although I promised never to contact her, the knowledge of my friend's emotional state sent me into a fit of anger, and I confronted him. I gave him a piece of my mind, told him what a piece of work he was for leaving his ex pregnant and alone and not caring for his unborn child. He was shocked and said that he had no idea what I was talking about. Ashley never told him about the pregnancy, and when I told him she was 9 months pregnant at the time, he said that it was not possible for him to be the father as they broke up over a year ago and had no relations since then. I was confused but apologized for yelling at him in the middle of the mall. After that, he became snarky, said some nasty stuff, and mentioned that maybe I should ask Ashley's friend Kyle if he is the daddy. I didn't really think about his words in any way. Kyle and Ashley had been friends their entire lives. We were always very close because of our parents' relationship, but they never showed any sign of being anything more. That evening, my younger sister, 14F, and I were preparing to have a movie night. I began ranting to her about confronting Ashley's ex and his words. My sister, who is usually very outspoken, got quiet and didn't really respond to anything I said. After a while, she excused herself and went to the bathroom. I decided to go and get some snacks and went downstairs to the kitchen and heard my younger sister berating my mother. This part of my memory is really fuzzy as I was dealing with lots of emotions. My sister told my mom about me running into Ashley's ex and his words, and told my mom she no longer wanted to hide from me the fact that Kyle was Ashley's baby's father. I was shocked, absolutely shocked. I stumbled into the kitchen and demanded an explanation. Both my mom and my sister became white as a sheet when they saw me, and my sister started crying her eyes out. My sister explained to me some things I also learned from other people later. That during the end of the summer break, Kyle and Ashley attended the same house party, got drunk and slept together. Ashley got pregnant and told Kyle, but they were both ashamed and afraid of telling me. They also didn't share this with their parents. Ashley, however, couldn't keep the secret and told her mom and dad, who told Kyle's parents and later to mine as well. This all happened when Ashley was in her first trimester. By her second trimester, all of my siblings, Kyle's and Ashley's siblings, knew about this. Everyone except for me. I simply cannot explain the way I felt. I was physically ill for the next 3 days, and I couldn't speak to anyone. My parents were apologetic but explained that they didn't want to see me hurt or ruin everyone's relationship. I did not speak with Kyle or Ashley, although they bombarded my phone with messages and calls and also came to my house. I refused to see them. At one point, Kyle's mom came to our house, and my mom allowed her into my room while I was lying in my bed, still ill and just emotionally drained from the betrayal. She tried to convince me to forgive them and how Ashley and the baby needed me. I said nothing. 2 weeks later, Ashley went into labor. I learned from my parents that she had a hard delivery. She lost a lot of blood and needed an emergency C-section. Kyle apparently was at the birth. I was distraught, inconsolable because of the betrayal by both, because I planned to be there and now physically and emotionally couldn't, because I was looking forward to this moment for months, for so many reasons. My older sister immediately went to the hospital to be with her boyfriend. My other siblings weren't at home, so I was left alone with my parents. All I wanted was to lay in my bed or cuddle in my bed with my mom and cry all my feelings out. My mom received a call from Ashley's mom. She came to my room and told me that she and Dad were going to the hospital. I was perplexed and asked her to stay with me. She said that Ashley's parents needed all the support they could get and that we would discuss everything later. I tried to tell her not to go and that I also needed their support, but she said not to be selfish and they left. I was left alone at the house, and I just couldn't comprehend what happened in the last few weeks. I couldn't believe that my parents would go and support someone who hurt me so much while I was also here suffering. Am I really selfish to think like that? I don't know when, but my sadness turned into anger, the kind I never experienced before. In a fit of combined emotions and feelings of betrayal, I started packing my bags and decided to leave home. It didn't take a while, but I started having second thoughts and just sat in the living room feeling empty. After a while, I received a text from my sister. The text said that Ashley gave birth to a healthy girl and that they were both okay. She attached a picture of the newborn and told me they named her Sarah, the name Ashley and I chose some months ago. She sent a second text a while later telling me that my parents and she were going to join Ashley's and Kyle's parents and going to a bar in the town to celebrate. I don't remember much after that. I think I was just consumed by everything, and my memory is very foggy. I left. I took a train and left. I stayed at a hostel in Phoenix for a while. I got a job at a store and planned to finish high school there. My parents, siblings, Kyle, and Ashley tried to contact me. My mom was sending me panicked voicemails demanding me to come back. They also reported me as a missing person, but I don't think it went anywhere as I was 18 anyway. Soon afterward, I met Dean, 21M. He also lived in Phoenix and had a complicated relationship with his family. We really connected and became friends. Soon he helped me a lot at that time. I struggled. I had no idea how to take care of myself or how to literally be an adult. He introduced me to his group of friends, helped me finish high school. I moved in with him and his friends. He helped me deal with my pain. I really struggled at one point and also had some regrets. I wanted to see a therapist, but I most definitely couldn't afford it. He was there for me and supported me through everything, and I don't think I would have lasted long without him. We began dating after a year. He inherited some money from his grandpa and decided to move across the country to the big city. Although we weren't together for long, he asked me to go with him. I was a bit reluctant because we both had a lot of emotional baggage, and I was still very insecure in my situation, but I did go. We moved, got jobs, and tried to survive. Soon after my 21st birthday, we decided to get married. It was a crazy, spontaneous decision, but we did it. I enrolled in university, and Dean helped me pay for it. He himself opened a company that took off, and we were able to live more comfortably. I was in uni and also worked a part-time job to contribute. We had our ups and downs, but somehow survived. After uni, I started working in his company, and we slowly built it up. When I look back now, I don't think I was in love with Dean when we got married. I loved him, but I wasn't in love. But he was there for me always, unconditionally. And today, I don't think I could love him more. He is the love of my life. We've been married for 12 years now, and we have a 2-year-old son and a 6-month-old son. Sometimes I regretted leaving my family behind, but I just couldn't go back. It was very painful. I felt like my parents chose Ashley and Kyle over me. I did go to a therapist when I was 25 and tried to deal with my emotions. Last year, at the beginning of the pandemic, I received an email from a 14-year-old girl named Evelyn. She explained that she was my niece, my older sister's and Kyle's brother's kid. She knew about me and wanted to meet me. Although I was reluctant to speak to her, we did exchange some emails. Let me note that she did not know what transpired 15 years ago, so the conversations were pretty innocent. We talked about her school, interests, and she talked about my family. I learned I had 10 nieces and nephews. I also learned that Kyle married Ashley 4 years after I left and had 2 sons besides Sarah. My parents continued to have a friendship with Kyle's and Ashley's family, and to me, it really felt like my family continued their normal life despite me being gone. She tried to talk to me about what happened, but I didn't really think it was my place to explain things to her, so I simply said that relationships change and things happen in life that make us go our separate ways. We continued talking ever so often for almost a year. In her email this January, she expressed how the pandemic had a big effect on her entire family and how my parents were struggling to keep their house and both my brothers lost their jobs and struggled to keep up with the cost. I was surprised at her knowledge of this as she was only 14, but the hardship was also causing tensions between her parents. I started to deal with a lot of guilty feelings and regrets. I also just had my baby, so that was causing me lots of emotions. I talked to my husband, and he was very supportive and told me that he would be there for me for whatever I decided. We are financially stable, and the pandemic didn't have a great impact on our finances. We are not rich but are able to live comfortably. After learning some more details and talking with Dean, we decided to help my parents with their house. A week ago, we flew back to my home state. I saw my family for the first time in 15 years. I had so many emotions. Regrets, pains from the past, feelings of betrayal. My parents were, I think, relieved to see me. It was just such a weird day. We had a lengthy conversation and agreed to try and have some sort of cordial relationship. It's been so long, and I am very awkward with them. Sometimes they feel like strangers. Dean and I spent a week there, and we continued to have conversations, and I truly believe that we were on a path to having a friendly yet distant relationship. But then my mom started insisting I have a sit-down conversation with Kyle and Ashley. She explained that she wants to go back to the way things were. I told her I refused to talk to them. Although I moved on, I simply have no ties with them now and don't want to rehash anything with them. I told her I am prepared to try and establish a relationship with them as they are my family, and I truly came to care for my niece, but that I don't want anything to do with Kyle, Ashley, or their family. I never demanded them to cease their relationship with their friends, but I don't want one. Dean supports me. My mom called me selfish and said that I simply must try and heal our relationship. I told her I will not negotiate and that it's on her to decide whether or not she wants to have a relationship with me. She said okay. But 2 days later, I received a phone call from Kyle's mom. I did not give her my number, and she demanded I talk with Kyle and Ashley as my return caused tensions in their relationship and their emotional health. I hung up. I called my mom and confronted her. Apparently, she gave that woman my number to heal our family bonds. I told her that she is choosing them over me again. She cried and yelled at me that I am selfish and that she just wants her family back. I hung up. It's been days since I spoke to any of them, although my mom and Kyle's mom keep on calling. Although I think I am right and I believe I should prioritize my well-being and the well-being and happiness of my husband, who has been behind me 100% and even told my mom off, and my sons, I am starting to have some regrets. I don't know if I should listen to my mom and speak to Ashley and Kyle. I question whether I was overreacting 15 years ago. I am questioning whether I am truly being selfish for not actively trying to repair the relationship. I would really appreciate any advice or opinion on what to do in this situation. Suddenly, I am questioning the entire course of my life. I am so lost, and I don't know what to do. Update 1. My gosh, it's been 2 years since I posted this. A lot of people have been asking me for an update. First of all, I want to thank all of the wonderful people who have been sending me updates and lovely messages. I'm truly grateful. A lot of things have happened in the last few years, not all great. Without making these 100 pages long, I never mentioned my little sister in my original post. Her relationship with my parents went downhill after I left home, and she went no contact with them when she was 20. I received her number from our older sister, and although it was awkward at first, it's been 15 years after all, we did start speaking again. She was very angry at me for leaving. A lot has happened in her life, and it wasn't the easiest. She has a toddler and a baby of her own, and I have to say that the kids have helped us bond again. She's my best friend, and we talk every day. As for my other siblings, I'm in regular contact with both my brothers, although we aren't close. My older sister and I have a good relationship now, but last year we've had a longer period of not speaking as she is married to Kyle's brother. It was hard for her to deal with all our and their family drama. We are cool now, and I have a lovely relationship with my nieces and nephews. I didn't go to my niece's birthday party. It just seemed like it would be too hard for me. Now to my parents. This one is a little painful for me to write, and at the time it felt like I was reliving all those shitty emotions I had at 18. My mom didn't let up with her pestering over me not talking with Kyle and Ashley. Her calls for that continued for months even after I was home again. It bordered on emotional blackmail. She blamed me for not honoring her wishes, for her friendship problems and health problems, and even accused me of keeping her grandbabies from her. Last June, I had my daughter, and it seems like that sent her completely over the rail. What I mean by that, 100+ calls a day, messages every 20 minutes to pester me about random things, sending me updates about people I never want to know about. When she started pestering Dean, I was done. I was afraid to block her, so I spoke to my father. This was probably the first time in the last 17 years that we had a true heart-to-heart conversation. I was emotionally drained, tired from caring for 3 children, and just over everything. I've probably poured all my feelings and emotions onto him. What happened to them afterward? He doesn't speak much about it. Her calls slowly ceased, and something else must have happened because in August he filed for a divorce. My father and I are in regular contact, although I don't think we'll ever be back to normal. Mom is devastated. In August, her calls became insane, and apparently not just with me. I've changed my number since then, and as of February, she has not been able to reach me. I've been told by one of my brothers that she has problems with anxiety and depression and lost a lot of friends. I don't really know whether or not she continues to have a relationship with Kyle and Ashley's family. I don't want to have anything to do with her anymore, nor do I want her near my kids. The things she said to me, and about my husband whom she really doesn't know, and after 15 years of no contact is crazy. Although I regret not having a mom, I feel like trying and fighting to repair the little remnants of our relationship would be a waste of my emotional energy and just pure torture. As for Kyle and Ashley, I've received some calls from Kyle's mom, as I mentioned in my original post. I blocked her, and no other calls have been received from anyone. I really don't know what they are doing or where they are. I've had no contact with them. The only thing that really happened is that in August, when things went downhill, my brother, Kyle's brother, brought me a letter apparently written by Ashley. I've not opened it, and I really don't know if I want to. I feel like I've moved on from them, but on the other hand, I'm curious as to what she has to say after so many years. However, that in itself could bring back bad emotions. I'm doing okay now with my baby and Dean, who is a real trooper in all of this. I'm trying to focus on my family, and I really hope that this is all behind me. To all of you, thank you again. If anything else happens, I'll try to update sooner. Update 2. Dear everyone, I have no idea if anyone will see this, but during the last few months since I posted my update, I've received many messages with advice and words of support. I have no way of thanking you, but know that your words truly mean a lot to me. I try to reply to everyone, but it sometimes takes me a while. A lot of questions have been asked in these messages, and I can't answer them all at this time. I plan on updating soon just to quickly answer the most common ones. I have not read the letter yet. Soon after updating, I started therapy again, and Dean and I decided that it would be best if I gave the letter to my therapist and let him decide when and if I am ever ready to read it. I have not spoken to my mom since the update. I've received messages on Facebook from her and Ashley's mom, which is a first. The latter I didn't even read. I've since deactivated my Facebook for the time being. Neither Kyle nor Ashley tried to contact me via any social media. The only thing I know is that Kyle was asking my brother for my address or number, but my brother refused them. That's when Ashley gave him the letter. My brother is in no contact with his family at the moment. They are separated as per my brother, but he does not know whether they are divorced or not. Last week, my dad was in town. He does not know my address and has never been to my house. For the first time in almost 2 decades, we had an open, honest conversation. I have to admit it was a lot, and I was not good for a few days afterward, but it was necessary. I learned a lot about my mom. A lot of you tried to imply there must have been something in her past to make her the way she is, and the time between them learning Ashley was pregnant and my return 2 years ago, it's a lot to unpack, and I'll probably be in therapy for a long time. It's a lot, really, so I'll have to write a separate update. Also, my little sister. She was not at fault, and I never blamed her for hiding the secret from me. She was a teen, and she knew it was wrong, but she was put under a lot of pressure by our mom. After I left, her life was hell, and our mom was insufferable and blamed her for a lot of things. Again, thank you for your words of support and encouragement. Lots of you sent words for Dean as well, and he has read them. You are right, he is the best, and I probably would not have been where I am today without him. Please appreciate your families if they are there for you in good and bad. Of course, call your parents and siblings and tell them how much you love them. In moments like this, we realize how much we undervalue the good people in our lives. Thank you, and I hope you are all well. Update 3. Hello. She was never bullied before. It really started after she got pregnant. Our state is pretty conservative, so it wasn't well received that she was pregnant, unmarried, and without a partner. There was no physical violence. People were quite mean and kept reminding her of her mistakes. I don't know if people knew that he was the father. I always just assumed it was because she was pregnant. I've learned from my dad that apparently they weren't hooking up with each other before, but that could be a lie. But apparently, she did like him, so it wasn't really just an awkward, drunk one-night stand with just anyone. Knowing this fact would probably kill me back then, but I sort of assumed without being told. Her ex suspected it. They didn't date anymore at the party, but I think he also never liked Kyle, so seeing them together like that was a red flag. I wasn't a party animal, nor was she, but they just went that day. I don't remember if they went together or separately, but I'd assume the latter. She did have other friends after all who enjoyed night outs. The drunkenness part, I really don't remember them being that heavy drinkers. At least I never saw her drunk to the point that she was reckless or had a loss of memory, so I never really believed that part much. But I wasn't there, and really it doesn't matter. Drunk or not. It was a betrayal. I read some of Kyle's texts back then. I never answered any of the phone calls or anything. I never spoke to them after I learned that he was the father. I kind of regret that now. Maybe it would have been more beneficial for everyone if I gave them a good earful, expressed all the pain, and gone no contact after that. But I just wasn't in the right state of mind, and I was sick a lot back then. This current letter is from her, and I haven't read it yet. At this point, I believe that my mom is grieving the loss of a tight family/friendship unit that we had when I was younger. In some other relationship, she has yet to realize that none of her 5 kids speak or see her. None of her grandchildren see her. None of us, as far as I know, speak to her. That in itself would be the end for me. I can't imagine what emotional state she must be in. We all agree that we need psychological or psychiatric help. She refused dad and eldest brother. But you can't convince someone like that. Update 4. Hello. Truthfully, I read this yesterday but needed some time to sort out my response. 1. I have no idea whether they were in love with each other or whether she was in love with him before it all happened, or really if it happened only once or more times. They said only once. I think she liked him, but I always thought it was because we were such close friends. They blamed each other. I read only a couple of their messages and never talked to them. It's what I heard from my sisters, my father, etc. It seems they were desperate at the time, especially as they married when the kid was like 4 or 5. I know they are not together at the moment, but nothing more. Really. 2. I hope Kyle didn't cheat. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone, especially with 3 kids. His texts, they were typical, I guess. He begged me to see him, talk to him, how he loves me and we can't break up, etc., etc. I didn't read all of them. He came to the house twice that I know of, but my older brother sent him away. He was very frantic in text and, from what I heard, in person. Ashley was just sad and very persistent with a long text. I know some don't approve of me just ignoring them, but I was sick and devastated. I was dead to the world for a few days. 3. I do sometimes think that it may have been a one-time/one-night thing, a mistake, but that one mistake turned into a month-long lie while she was pregnant with his child. She allowed me to continue to date him and plan things with him and her. My sadness and anger aren't so much about them cheating. It's that I was lied to for months, and if my sister hadn't spoken, probably for years. There was no jealousy, I'd think. There was no putting down in looks or people saying Ashley is better looking, no Ashley is prettier. 4. I do sometimes think that it may have been a one-time/one-night thing, a mistake, but that one mistake turned into a month-long lie while she was pregnant with his child. She allowed me to continue to date him and plan things with him and her. My sadness and anger aren't so much about them cheating. It's that I was lied to for months, and if my sister hadn't spoken, probably for years. 5. I have a new number, and besides my immediate family, bar my mother, no one from my old life has this new number, so Kyle's mom calling me shouldn't be possible. Kyle's mom wasn't worried about me, just like my mom. She insisted we repair my relationship with everyone and claimed that my presence was now ruining their marriage and causing troubles all around. Unlike my mom, she was on her daughter's side. 6. The dads. My dad was mostly uninvolved in the situation. I don't know so much about the other dads, but I can say that the moms are wearing the pants in these relationships, and they are all very forceful women. 7. With the sides of others, I'm just saying that if any of them wrote their own narrative in a Reddit post, they would probably receive a lot of sympathy, and maybe people would find me the problem. A few days ago, I received a lot of comments from a user defending Ashley and claiming that Kyle raped her. This user accused me of pedophilia despite everyone being 18 plus and just saying really nasty stuff. So I guess that's my point. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My sister had a breakdown and confessed she slept with my fiancé 3 years ago to get back at her ex. My mom knew about it for months and never told me. Hi, Reddit. I'm posting here in the hope that someone can give me some advice, share their experiences. I don't know. I'm just completely at a loss. I feel like my heart has been ripped out. My fiancé, let's call him Jake, and I have been together for 7 years. I don't know a life without him. I met him at university. We stayed together past graduation and moved into a flat which we bought together 2 years ago. He proposed last summer, and we were set to wed in July 2017. We have had very few problems until now. My sister, let's call her Sarah, is an extremely volatile person. Growing up, I doted on her completely, but she had a lot of personal issues that made our home life turbulent. Her childhood was very different to mine. My parents had very little money. They were on the brink of a divorce. My dad was physically violent on a number of occasions. Whilst things improved drastically in the years after I was born, she has an abundance of problems that stem back to this. My parents feel a lot of guilt about Sarah's upbringing and used to let her get away with some shocking behavior. Sarah had the same boyfriend for as long as I can remember. They dated from when they were 16, and their relationship was toxic. They habitually broke up and got back together. When they were good, they were crazy in love, but more often than not, she would have these insane arguments, sometimes physical, with him, then take out her frustrations and despair on myself and my parents. I remember spending many nights lying by her side in bed while she cried so hard she would retch. After their arguments, she would throw plates and glasses at the wall, hit herself. Sometimes she would hit me and my parents too. It was like he was a drug to her. And she was emotionally stunted and didn't know how to see anything past their relationship. 2 months ago, her boyfriend called things off for good. I don't know what gave, but after nearly 2 decades together, he finally had enough. He booked a one-way ticket to another country, changed his number, deleted all social media profiles, and essentially disappeared from Sarah's life. To this day, she still won't explain what caused this, but it was long overdue. To say Sarah was devastated is an understatement. She moved out of their shared rented apartment and in with my parents. I would visit her most days after work, where she would flit in between explosive rage to an almost catatonic silence, staring at the wall with tears streaming down her face. At one point, we were all extremely worried she might seriously harm herself and organized for her to see a therapist, something I had suggested for years. Of course, she backed out days before her appointment, and there were no consequences. She is, after all, a grown woman. She just hasn't changed emotionally in the entire time I've known her and still acts like a teenager. 2 days ago, I went to visit Sarah, who was in bed in her darkened room. I let myself in and attempted to speak to her, telling her about my day at work. She immediately exploded, screaming at me, throwing her pillows across the room, crying uncontrollably. She told me life was unfair, that I had everything, and she was left alone to rot, that everything wrong in her life was because she was a bad person. She hurt her boyfriend. She drove him away. She's ruined our family. She had sex with Jake and didn't even feel guilty at the time. I initially thought I'd misheard her, but then she said it again. It was like she had poured a bucket of ice water over me. I silently left, shaking. When I got home, Jake was there watching TV. It came out of my mouth the second I saw him, and I could see in his eyes it was true. He broke down and told me it had happened 3 years ago. Sarah had had another blazing row with her boyfriend and decided to drive round to Jake's looking for me. I was at our parents' at the time, and Jake attempted to pacify Sarah. He comforted her while she sobbed in his arms, and one thing led to another. They had sex. I packed an overnight bag while he followed me from room to room, sobbing and telling me it was the worst mistake of his life, that he still has no idea how it happened, that he felt unbelievably guilty the second it was over, that it feels like it wasn't even real. I left him in the doorway, begging me not to leave. I've checked into a hotel, and I've switched my phone off. I don't know what to do, who to tell, where to begin. I feel sick, like this is a bad dream. My heart feels like it's been ripped into a million pieces. For all of Sarah's faults, I love her more than anything. It's the two people who are more to me than anyone else in the world. How the hell do I move on from this? I feel like I'm in a bubble. I don't know what's going on in the outside world. All I do is cry and sleep in this room. Someone please help me make sense of this. Update 1. Hi everyone. I'd like to thank each and every single person who took the time out of their day for me. I was so overwhelmed that I've not responded to a single one as of yet, but it is truly, truly appreciated. Now on to the update. It has only been a day or so since I made my post, but it feels like I've been in that hotel room for weeks, crying in the dark, buried under the covers. At some point this morning, I decided to draw the curtains open and let the sunlight in. I went and sat on the balcony and switched my phone on for the first time. It started ringing within 30 seconds. It was my mother, who burst into tears as soon as I answered her. My parents had obviously been desperately worried. This is the longest I have ever gone without contact and had even contemplated calling the police had I failed to contact them by this evening. My mom informed me that as I was walking out of Sarah's room, down the stairs and out the front door, Sarah was screaming and wailing that she's sorry. Funnily enough, I didn't hear this. I don't know how. I think I was in such a state of shock that I couldn't process anything around me. Honestly, I can't even remember the drive home. After I shut the door behind me, my mom, who was the only other person at home, rushed into Sarah's room to find her trashing her room and attempting to slash her wrists with a blunt lino cutter of all instruments. Sarah used to do a lot of art. Obviously, this barely caused a scratch but jump-started my mom into action. She drove Sarah to the hospital, where I understand she underwent some sort of assessment and was kept overnight. She has incredibly agreed to undergo treatment for whatever it is that is wrong with her. My mom was surprised she was so complacent on the drive down, willingly entering the car and saying nothing other than asking where I am. Sarah seems resigned and completely deflated. My mom spoke to me at length for the first time in my life about the hardships they had undergone during Sarah's childhood. I am unwilling to go into detail, and I'm still in shock about some of the things I heard. Sarah is not devoid of responsibility. She has long surpassed the age where she can blame her childhood for her behavior, but my mom admitted through tears that not seeing her to therapy at an early age was the biggest regret of her life so far. I asked my mom if she knew why I had left. She admitted that she had known since Sarah's ex left 2 months ago. At this point, I had to struggle not to hang up, and I suddenly felt myself going back into that pit, but she begged me to listen. After her ex Harry, I am too drained to invent a name. Hi Harry. Left, Sarah told my mom exactly what had happened. It was not the reason for Harry's departure, although he did know about it. Rather, he had had enough of being Sarah's carer, and years of begging her to seek help had fallen on deaf ears one too many times. When Sarah informed my mom told Sarah, "I have to know immediately." Sarah refused to tell me, and I still don't know why she changed her mind in that moment. My dad doesn't know, for anyone wondering, and thinks I've left as I've also finally had enough of Sarah's behavior. Now here is where the home truths came out. I asked my mom if she knew the details. She was reluctant to tell me anything, stating that it had happened and that was all I needed to know, but I told her I refused to step foot in the house until I knew everything. She then proceeded to tell me that a few months before they slept together, Sarah and Jake had kissed at my dad's 60th birthday party. It was a large family gathering with a lot of alcohol involved. I remember Jake getting very drunk with my cousins. Sarah had a crying tantrum prior to arriving as her and Harry had an argument and he refused to come. She called me sobbing before she arrived. At some point during the night, Jake asked her if she was okay and hugged her, and once again one thing led to another and they shared a kiss in the kitchen. Sarah told my mom that they were both immediately remorseful and vowed never to speak of it again. But Sarah deliberately sought him out the night they slept together knowing he was unlikely to turn her down. She openly admitted she did it to get back at Harry, who had cheated on her during one of their many infamous breaks. I don't think I even entered her thoughts at this point. I'd heard enough. We'd spoken on the phone for over 4 hours, and I felt mentally drained and physically sick. Any hope I had of salvaging my relationship with Jake has completely gone. I feel the last 3 years have been tainted by their betrayal and the many years before that. I wonder, did he like Sarah this whole time? Part of me doesn't even want to know. It's worth noting he has made absolutely no attempt to contact me other than a single text stating, "I'm sorry, take as long as you need." As if it's inevitable I will come back to him. Things are still up in the air. I don't feel ready to check out of the hotel as I don't know where I'm going to go next. I feel my relationship with my mom has been rocked by these revelations. I don't know what's going to become of Sarah. I have no idea what I'm going to do about me and Jake's flat, where I'm going to live. I don't even know if I have a job anymore. I just haven't showed up to work. But I know the truth and the smallest part of me is grateful for that. The rest of me is consumed by a pain I never imagined possible. I guess there's nothing else to do now except wait and see how things unfold. But reading through your comments and messages have been more help than you can imagine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for anyone who has ever experienced symptoms like Sarah or has been around someone who is so visibly troubled, I beg of you, seek help before it's too late. Update 2. Hi everyone. I thought I would make a final update to my original post, an update as I received a lot of messages over the last few days wondering how I'm over the holiday period. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for the outpouring of support I've received over the last month. The number of messages, links to help and offers for a shoulder to cry on were overwhelming and touching. I apologize if I never got round to replying to them all. The last few weeks have been a blur, but I am eternally grateful nonetheless. So, after my conversation with my mom where I found out she had known about Jake and Sarah, I went back to square one. I switched my phone off again and retreated back into my hotel for a further 5 days. From the comments on my last post, I should clear up one thing. My mom hadn't known about Jake and Sarah from the very beginning. Rather, Sarah had told her about it at the time of Harry's sudden departure, meaning she had known a couple months before I did. Eventually, I decided enough was enough and decided to call work. My boss wasn't angry or even surprised to hear from me. My mom had called him after our conversation and told him there had been a family emergency, and I would be unavailable for the foreseeable future. He advised I'd take to the end of the week but would have to come to a meeting if I required any more time off work than I had already given myself. So, my job was safe-ish, and I'm back at work and trying to get on with things. After this, I went back to my parents. Sarah was also home but holed up in her room. I went in to see her and she was up painting. As a number of you guessed, it is likely she is BPD, although my parents are waiting on a second opinion. She is going to counseling weekly and seems slightly better. She broke down in tears when she saw me, and we had a long talk where she spoke to me in depth about how truly consumed she was by her and Harry's toxic relationship. She understands it's for the best that it's over, but she describes the pain as unrelenting. It hurt when he was with me, and it hurts now he's gone. I know a lot of you will feel disappointed that I haven't cut her or my mom out of my life for good. I still feel resentment in the pit of my stomach when I think about it, but truly I blame Jake more than anyone else. Jake was with me for long enough to see some of Sarah's behavior. She's not well, and he still chose to do what he did. It is a slow process, but she's my sister, and I can't cut them out of my life forever. It will never be the same again, but maybe that's a good thing. My dad, who had been newly informed on the proceedings, drove to my apartment and gathered some clothes in an overnight bag. Jake was not home, and my parents have not heard from him since I left. I have no idea where he is, and neither he nor his family have attempted any contact with me since this came out. His social media profiles have disappeared, and I have not attempted any contact with him, his family, or his friends. I began the slow process of telling my friends last week. I did not explain what happened other than to say Jake was not the person I thought he was. They have all assumed cheating, but there is no reason for them to know who was involved. I have switched back and forth between staying with my parents and sleeping at my apartment. I sleep on the sofa bed as the memories are too painful at the moment. I am in the process of looking into selling the place. However, this means contacting Jake at some point in the near future as the apartment is joint-owned. I will cross that bridge when I feel a bit stronger. Christmas Day was a strange and sad one for both myself and Sarah, but we spent it as a family, and for the few hours we were sat around eating and watching movies, the pain was dulled even a small bit. As we were flicking through the various movies and TV episodes we'd recorded, I came across a scene that stuck with me. A scene that ended with the words, "La familia es to do." I still spend most days with a hole in my heart. It hurts more than anything I've ever felt in my life, but it's getting better. I know I've got a long way to go, but for the first time I'm confident I'll get there. Thank you for reading. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Dad asked me to pay for my stepsister's college and promised to repay me. But years later, when I needed the money for my wedding, he said no because he doesn't approve of my fiancé. I am 33, have had a very rocky relationship with my family. For the most part, I have tried my best to be understanding and accommodating, and I believe my parents have too. But I guess that hasn't been enough to ensure a cordial living environment. When I was 10 years old, my parents got divorced. I wouldn't say I felt any resentment at that time, only relief, because living with both of them under the same roof was no simple task, especially for the faint-hearted. I grew up with the most dysfunctional set of parents, who were always fighting and screaming about one thing or another. I was made their referee or mediator at a very young age, and I remember having to resolve their fights or get them to talk to each other on bad days. On some days, when I felt overwhelmed, I just didn't come back home from school and went to stay with my paternal grandparents. They lived a few blocks away. It was only with them that I felt some respite, and they doted on me, so I loved being there. They tried to intervene in my parents' issues, and when they realized that their efforts were futile, they tried to tell my parents that it wasn't my job to be the adult in the house and take care of their issues. But I guess all of that fell on deaf ears. Moreover, I never felt that what I was doing wasn't what normal kids do, because I had grown up being the tethering point for my mom and dad. I had to bear this responsibility since the beginning, and I never even imagined that wasn't what other kids spent their time doing. So when the divorce was happening, I was relieved. I spent 2 weeks with each parent, and it was only in that situation that I actually began to thrive. There was no more shouting, no more anger, just one-on-one time with one parent at a time, and I loved every bit of it. I got their attention, I got peace of mind, and I got a lot of free time to do what I wanted to. One good thing about them was that, after the divorce, they never once complained about each other to me. They might have had issues with each other and they might have run to friends, but they chose never to do it with me, and I am very grateful for that. The constant barrage of hate against each other stopped the moment the divorce was finalized and Mom moved out. 5 years later, when I was 15, my father remarried my stepmom, Savannah. Savannah and I have shared a cordial relationship thus far. She has never tried to be mom to me, but has always tried to include me in the family unit. She is a good woman, and I have nothing against her. The initial period of adjustment with her was hard, but all in all, things turned out reasonably okay. The only issue was her daughter, Gemma, now 25F. She was 7 years old when Savannah and Dad got married, and if I'm being honest, she was a bit of a brat. My dad, in order to keep the peace, bent over backward to accommodate Gemma and all her ludicrous demands. Anytime she did something to anger or trigger me, he defended her by saying that she was a kid and was trying to adjust to moving to a new house, which is why I had to be the bigger person and not create a fuss. A few examples of what happened after she moved in was that she took over my entire room since she was supposed to stay there permanently, and I was there for only 15 days a month and would anyway be leaving in a couple of years for college. I had to be okay with this compromise. Well, I wasn't. I didn't want to give up my room or even share it with a strange kid half my age. My dad was insistent that the maximum compromise that could be reached would be that she and I would be sharing a room. Savannah stepped in at that time. I don't know if it was because she wanted to protect her daughter from a stranger or she didn't want to antagonize me or a mixture of both, but she said that taking away my room would be cruel and they would fit Gemma in somewhere else. It was her urging that ultimately made Dad leave things as they were, and not the fact that I didn't want to change my room. It felt weird knowing that he didn't listen to me but listened to his new wife. That was the point when the dynamics changed for me. I didn't like being at Dad's place, and it wasn't because of his new wife and daughter, it was because of him. He was the one who made me feel unwanted. It was only because of Savannah and her efforts that I continued going there. To be honest, she took an active interest in my life, tried to spend time with me, and made food that I liked when I was there. It was as though she saw Dad being negligent and she tried to cover up for him. Gemma was a whiny little girl, and I generally stayed away from her, and Savannah never forced me to form a bond with her daughter either. It was generally Dad who tried to push the "you are siblings now" narrative. 3 years later, while I was about to leave for college, Dad and Savannah had a kid together, my stepsister Ashley, now 15F. There is too much of an age gap between Ashley and me to form any sort of relationship with her. Even though she's technically blood, I have no bond with her. When she was born, my dad called me aside and told me that he was in a bit of a rough spot, so he wouldn't be able to help me with university and that I was on my own. That came as a big shock to me because I had always been told that both Mom and Dad had saved for my college, and the combined amount was enough for me to not rely on loans. When he backed out, my mother pitched in more to try to minimize my loans. I still had to take loans, but they were not as hefty, and I have held good enough jobs after college to be able to keep paying them off. However, this kind of permanently strained my relationship with Dad. This was money that had been promised to me, and he used it for his new family. I rarely went to Dad's place after that. I had very low contact with him, but surprisingly stayed in touch with both Savannah and Gemma. I guess it didn't matter to my father that I was no longer in his life because he had a kid to take care of again. We were low contact for almost the next 7 years, in which I graduated college, got a job, and moved cities, even lived abroad for a year. However, when I was 25, Dad reached out to me again. He tried to engage in some small talk, but I knew there had to be a reason for him to get in touch with me, and then he said it. It didn't take him long. Apparently, Ashley had had a medical emergency a few months ago. I had known about it from Savannah and regularly asked for updates, and it had been a huge financial strain for them. Savannah had some money saved for Gemma's college, but Dad had used it all for Ashley's medical bills without Savannah's knowledge. So he was begging me to help with Gemma's tuition fees and said that he would repay every penny to me. I didn't want to help him out. I wanted him to face the consequences of his actions, and I told him so. I told him that he had failed me as a father and I had hoped he would do better by Gemma, but clearly that was not the case. I told him this was exactly how he had left me stranded when I had to go to college, and now he was doing the same to Gemma, and that too after literally stealing the money meant for her. I told him that I had taken out loans and so could Gemma, but he said that she did not have the support of her biological father like I had support from my mother. I disconnected the call. I knew I would help Gemma. She was a sweet kid, and I had nothing against her, but I didn't want to see Savannah. So I called up my dad again and told him that the only condition that I was willing to help him out with was if he was honest with Savannah and that if he promised to pay me back. He said that he did not want to involve Savannah, but I said that I wouldn't be shelling out a single penny if he wasn't honest with her. He cut the call and I thought that was the end of it. But 3 days later, Savannah gave me a call. It sounded like she had been crying, and she just thanked me for everything I had done. I told her that I would help out Gemma with the tuition fees, but that I would be giving the money to her and not Dad because I did not trust him. She agreed, and that was that. Even Gemma called me up thanking me, and we have had a better relationship since then. Now comes the real issue. I am engaged to my fiancée, Mahira, and she is Afghan by ethnicity but was born and brought up here. This has rubbed my father the wrong way, and he has made sure to be very public and vocal about his disapproval. Not that I care, because I don't have a functional relationship with him anyway. My mother and Savannah both like Mahira, and Gemma and she are quite close, so all the people that I care about have a good opinion of her, and that is what matters to me. We are planning our wedding, and I went to my dad telling him that I need him to pay me the money that he owes me, aka Gemma's tuition money, and that I wanted it soon because that would go into funding the wedding. My father told me point blank that he would not be giving me any money if I planned on getting married to that immigrant scum. I told him what I did with that money was immaterial, and he had no right to hang it over my head like a sword. It was my money and he owed it to me. Even if I used it to wipe my ass for the rest of my life, he did not have a say in it. He wasn't doing me a favor or lending money to me. He was only returning what was rightfully mine. He said that he would not be doing it to fund my wedding and that I could do whatever I wanted, but he wouldn't budge. To say that I was furious would be an understatement. There were a lot of harsh words spoken, and I uninvited him to my wedding. I also told him that I would be exposing his treachery to his family and the world, but I think he did not take me seriously at that time. I decided that, instead of going nuclear, I would just let the close family know how he was deceiving me. So I drafted a long text detailing how he stole Gemma's money to take care of Ashley, and then came begging to me for help and promised to return the money to me, only to backtrack the minute he found a reasonable excuse to not pay. This was the gist of the entire text because it is too long to replicate here anyway. I sent the message to my mother, Savannah, Gemma, my paternal grandparents, and my father's sister and her family. I kept Ashley out of it because she is a kid and she should not be knowing all this. I hadn't expected any drama or revelations in response to my message. Frankly, I had only done this to vent my frustrations and anger, and a part of me regretted it too because I could afford the wedding on my own. But I am so glad I did because it opened a huge can of worms, and now it is for all to see how big of a scum my father really is. A day after I sent that text, my paternal grandfather, Grandpa from now on, called me up. We exchanged pleasantries, but he cut to the point soon enough. He asked me if what I had sent in those texts was the truth and if I had actually helped my dad with Gemma's tuition. I said that I had, and that I had loaned him quite a lot of money for the same. He asked me if I was sure that he had said that he had used up the money for Ashley, and I said that I was completely sure. That was when Grandpa told me his side of the story. So when Ashley fell sick, Dad called up Grandpa immediately. He said that he was facing financial difficulties and that he did not know how to arrange for Ashley's medical expenses without taking on huge debt. He said that he had Gemma's college fund, but since he had no access to that, he could not use it for Ashley. I cut in and told my grandpa that Dad had told me that he had in fact complete control of those finances and had used them, and that too without Savannah's knowledge. I also told him that I had to intervene and tell Savannah that he had used up Gemma's money. All in all, what I gathered from the conversation was that Gemma's money was not used for Ashley's bills because all of that was paid for by my grandpa, and even he was assured that the money would be returned to him. Gemma's college fund therefore was taken by Dad for other reasons that he has not yet disclosed, and no one knows. Savannah and Dad were in it together and just wanted to scam me out of the money. I felt so nauseous after I cut the call. It was as though I was stranded among scammers and cheaters, and not one of them could be trusted. I felt as if I had ruined my wedding because all this was just too much for me to handle, and that too right before the beginning of a new chapter in my life. I called up my mom and told her everything. She just told me to cut this crap out of my life and that I could fight these battles later. She said that I was getting married to a good woman and that I owed it to her and myself to not let other people ruin this experience. She said that I had all the time in the world to take Dad and Savannah to task. But this was not the time. I knew she was right, and surprisingly, I didn't have to do anything or even wait because my grandpa was furious and he was back with his little revenge that was about to completely screw my dad for all time to come. So the house that Dad and Savannah live in is owned by my grandpa. He gave it to Dad to live in when he married Mom and then never asked for it back. It was anyway assumed that the house would go to my grandpa when he passed. He also never charged Dad rent, but Dad had to pay for any upgrades and changes that he made to the house, which were plenty. Now for the drama. My grandpa sent a message to the family group that he would be gifting me a house for the wedding to allow me to start a new life with my wife. He said that he had done the same thing for my father and was going to do the same for me, considering the fact that his son had not thought of doing anything for his son. It was a poorly masked jibe at my father, and I was all in for the show. But what he wrote next was completely unexpected. He said that the house that was supposed to go to my father, the one that Dad was living in but was still legally owned by Grandpa, was the one that he would be gifting me. I know that he has done it out of spite, and I am sure even Dad knows it. The thing is, I do not live in the same town as Dad and have no plans of returning, and this is a well-known fact in my family. The ownership of the house will of course be a huge asset for me, but I won't be staying in that house, at least until I retire. But my dad will. That has been his only home for so many years now, and to take that away from him and give it to me is a deliberate and hard slap in his face. I am not saying that I feel sorry for my father, not at all, but I know it would feel horrible to be in his position right now. With the actual ownership coming to me, he now knows that he is always at my mercy in the sense that I can have him evicted, I can ask him for rent, I can do anything and without reason. I mean, of course, I can't flout rules, but let's be real, we all know how much power homeowners have over their tenants. I have no idea what the outrage regarding this is going to be, but I am sure that there will be something. My father is going to make a huge fuss about it. I am sure of that, but I can't be bothered with this unnecessary drama before my wedding. I will gladly accept the gift from Grandpa, whatever the reason he has given it to me, and I will respect him and his gift. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, and I am not going to waste time thinking about all this right now either. Update 1. Well, it has hit the fan. My wedding is a week away, and the family is in complete shambles. I tried to stay away from the drama as much as possible, but I just couldn't. I was forcefully dragged into it even when I tried to maintain boundaries. After Grandpa had made it known that he was gifting the house to me, this caused a huge stir because Dad, I am sure, never even anticipated that something like this could happen. He called me up a couple of times, but I didn't answer his calls because I knew all too well what they were going to be about. He then sent me a text saying that I needed to knock some sense into Grandpa and said that he was ashamed of the man I had become because he had not raised a petty person like me who would turn his back on his own family. I didn't respond to this text either and have since blocked him. He has been trying to get in touch with me through other sources, even getting Savannah to call me. She called me once, but when I didn't respond, she was respectful and hasn't tried calling me again. When nothing else worked, he started sending me emails. He is getting desperate, and it is showing. I try my best to ignore his nonsense, but it is mentally taxing to wake up to 5 emails every single day. I just dread waking up in the morning because I know that there is something waiting for me. He is still invited to my wedding as of now, but I want to cancel the invitation. I know it will send a bad message, but at this point I don't care. I can't even look at his face right now, and if I am being honest, I need distance from Savannah too right now. I am scared he is going to pull off something during the wedding as well. I called up my grandpa and I told him that he needs to ensure that all this drama is kept away from me until I'm back from my honeymoon. I told him that I didn't care what he did. He needed to make sure that this didn't spill over onto my wedding and my honeymoon. I have already dealt with a lot due to the family, and I don't want to screw up the one important day of my life. Grandpa assured me that he would make sure Dad didn't do anything, and that I would not be contacted about all this until I was back from my honeymoon. I hope nothing bad happens, but in the event that it does, I will just deal with it once I am back. I have a lot on my plate, and I cannot allow myself to deal with a father who doesn't care about me and has used me like a cash cow right now. Update 2. I am now a married man. Mahira and I returned from our honeymoon a few days ago, and it was amazing. I had the time of my life there, and thankfully no one from the family disturbed me. They couldn't because most of them were blocked. I thought the drama might be over by now, but boy, I was completely wrong. I hadn't even imagined that things would be so dire by the time I returned. I got a call from Gemma yesterday asking to meet her and Savannah. I told her that I wasn't very comfortable meeting Savannah. I had uninvited them from the wedding because I just couldn't handle the stress. She said that she understood my apprehensions and so did Savannah, but she still wanted me to meet them just once so that they could clarify everything. I was reluctant, but I said okay because I didn't want to let Gemma down. She was an innocent party, and I did not hold anything against her. She said that both she and Savannah were actually in my city and that they wanted to meet as soon as possible. The meeting was long. It was awkward between me and Savannah initially, and she congratulated me on the wedding. I told her that I disinvited them primarily because of Dad and also because I thought maybe somewhere she was complicit in the entire situation of extracting money out of me using Gemma's education and Ashley's health as a front. The minute I said this, she broke down sobbing. She said that she had no idea that Dad had actually taken money from Grandpa and then proceeded to tell me what happened. By the time she had told me the entire story, I had literal flames coming out of my ears. So Ashley was sick, that part is true. Dad had used some of his savings for her treatment, but that was not enough. So he said that he would ask Grandpa for money and promise Savannah that he would give the money back to Grandpa. She said fine, and that was the last she heard about the money from him. Ashley got better, and for her, everything was back to normal. So when she found out all those years ago that he had used up Gemma's money, she was furious and didn't believe it at all. When she asked Dad about it, he just told her that he had used up that money to repay Grandpa. He concocted an entire sob story about how Grandpa was pressuring him, that he had no choice at that point but to use that money, and that I had offered to help myself. Savannah said that she was very embarrassed by the entire situation but was still very grateful to me for the help. Their marriage hit a rough patch during that time, and it took them a lot of counseling and therapy to get back to normal. She said that all that came crashing down when Grandpa said he would be gifting the house to me and disclosed to her that he had never received the money back. She said it felt like someone had slapped her across the face. She asked him where the money was. He tried to lie and make his way around it, but ultimately admitted that he had an affair and the affair partner was trying to out his secret to Savannah. In order to shut her up, he had to give her that money, and only then did she leave him alone. Once the cat was out of the bag, it was over for them. Savannah has since then moved out of the place, and they are headed for a divorce. She said that Dad had been trying to get her to reconcile, but she said that cheating was something that she was just not willing to condone. Couldn't believe my ears. So much had happened in that meeting that I just did not have the bandwidth to process that information. I consoled her and we then left. I have been in touch with both her and Gemma, and I plan to continue doing so. I just feel horrible that I disinvited her for no fault of hers. She was in fact the biggest victim in all of this. I can only feel rage and disgust right now. I cannot believe my father would be a cheater on top of being a fraud. I mean, he is the worst combination ever known to mankind, and I don't want anything to do with him ever again. I just want to help Savannah out and do right by her even though she was failed by my father. Update 3. I am now charging my father rent. He is continuing to live in the same house, and I told him that I needed him to sign an official agreement to continue residing in the house. The rent is a good amount, and that, coupled with the divorce in the process, is going to bleed him dry, and he deserves it. I have also decided that I will be splitting the rent 2 ways and sharing it with both Mom and Savannah. Savannah will be getting the larger share because she was always a stay-at-home mom, and she needs the money now more than ever. My mother, on the other hand, has been a working woman all her life, and she does not really need the money. In fact, she was the one who gave me this idea and was of the opinion that all the money should go to Savannah. Mahira and I don't need the money for ourselves. We are comfortably placed where we are, and we could easily do without the additional income. The same cannot be said for Savannah, and I feel it is my duty to help her out. She was there for me when my dad wasn't, and I want to thank her for all that she has done for me. I know she isn't going to accept the money, but I will make sure that she does. My father reacted poorly when served with the rent agreement and tried to get other family members to manipulate me into taking back the agreement. But unfortunately for him, the entire family now knows that he is a filthy, filthy man, and they don't want anything to do with him either. He tried to get in touch with me via texts, calls, and emails, but all of them were unanswered and well documented. He then tried to get to me via Grandpa, but he gave him a stern reality check, which has since then calmed him down. He is not on my head asking me to reconsider for the past few days. I think he has understood that, given the circumstances, he cannot really expect anything better. Savannah is going to try to get full custody of Ashley, though that doesn't seem very likely at the moment. Dad is better placed to take care of her financially, but his incompetence as a parent is not difficult to prove. I don't know what will happen on that front, but I genuinely hope that Ashley stays with Savannah. Savannah is a great mom, and she will do well with Ashley. I cannot say the same for my father. Funnily enough, I can say the opposite for him with every ounce of conviction. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My husband and I are on the brink of divorce, and we are desperately seeking advice. Can our marriage be saved? Throwaway account due to friends and family following the main account, omitting some personal information for the sake of anonymity. I'm going to try and make a timeline of events in our relationship for context. TLDR at bottom. We met when we were 9 and started dating at 12. Mind you, this was that middle school type of dating. He cheated on me when we were 15 or 16. At this point, we were on again, off again, which continued until we were 17. I got a full ride to a university across the country for athletics and academics when I was 18. My first and only semester there I hated. I hated the team and the coaches, and I had no friends. He flew out to visit me, and we got engaged at 18 years old. He flew back a little over a month later, and we had a courthouse wedding. I came home after the semester finished. He was 18 and I was 19 when he joined a very difficult, prestigious branch of the military. He left for 3 months for training, which was difficult, but we did fine. He came back for a few weeks, and then left for a few more months for school for his particular job. During this time, I would later find out, he signed himself up on Bumble and paid $50 plus in upgrades for more swipes. He insists he never met anyone from it, and no conversations that he had were ever anything more than introductions. He also, again I would later find out a few years later, spent over $600 at a strip club. He says he was pressured by seniors to go and ended up paying for a VIP room for one of his buddies because he got the room and then didn't have the money to pay for it, and my husband said his friend was going to get into trouble. That weekend, he would go up and down the coast going to various clubs and another strip club from what I've gathered. At 19, we moved states and got our first house together. At 20, he deployed. This would be a very difficult time in our lives, and even more difficult after he got home. He developed a pornography addiction while deployed. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor at 4 in the morning, refreshing one of his social media accounts, which I could see his following numbers go up about every 5 minutes, all porn accounts. He pressured me for pictures and videos, and I would feel guilty for not doing the things he wanted. I felt like if I didn't, he was just going to find someone else to do it for him. He came home 6 months later and we were okay, except I noticed after a few weeks that as soon as he came home from work, he would practically beeline it to the bathroom and shower for 45 plus minutes. Sometimes I would even go into the bathroom after and I could tell he dropped the bottle of lube on the ground and it was still slippery, or I could see the ring on the counter from the bottom of the bottle. I did my best to ignore it until one day, I saw a charge on our account for $30 to someone with a very interesting name. I confronted him, and he immediately looked away, took a deep breath, brushed his hand through his hair, and sputtered out a quick excuse that it was his buddy's wife who bought them all lunch during work. I don't know why, but I said okay, and left it at that. He got up a few minutes later, saying he felt sick, and went to lay down. I got a text from him an hour later saying he was sorry and that he developed a pornography addiction over deployment, and he sent money to a girl for her premium Snapchat or something. He says he felt so guilty he didn't even look at anything, and he deleted her right after he sent the money. I realized that the day this transaction took place, he had bought me flowers. He has never done that before, not even on any special occasions. From here on, the dates get confusing for me. I don't remember what happened first or when or how far apart, but I'll do my best to include as much information as I remember. Sometime later, maybe weeks, maybe months, I woke up to a message from an older acquaintance on a certain social media site. I think we were still 20 or maybe 21. I don't remember what exactly she said. Something along the lines of, "I just wanted you to know he said this to me," or something like that. He had messaged her the night prior, whilst drinking at a friend's house down the road, that he loved and missed her. I wish so badly I could remember more, but for some reason I can't. I know she said something like, "You can't be saying that, you're married," and he said something along the lines of, "I don't care." I screamed at him to wake up, but he was still drunk. I told him I wanted a divorce. I locked myself in the bathroom and hurt myself because I wanted to feel anything other than how I felt at the moment. I don't know how much time passed when he opened the door. He said he didn't send those messages. He said that he left his phone plugged into the speaker and his friend was using it to play music. He said his friend must have seen the girl's story and messaged her trying to get nudes. He even pulled out his phone with proof. A text conversation between him and his friend confirming that the friend had messaged her and said he was sorry. I don't know why, but I believed him immediately. I remember having the most euphoric feeling of, I don't know what the word is, but whatever you feel when you let out a breath you've been holding and say, "Oh, thank God." I'm getting frustrated writing this because I'm realizing how much I'm forgetting, and I feel like I'm missing something. At 21, I think hit the fan. I think at this point, I had gone through his phone several times and found internet history and links that he had clicked through one of his social media accounts to hundreds of different OnlyFans sites. One night, I went through his entire dollar account history since 2018 and found the charge for the strip club and Bumble. He said the Bumble charge wasn't him. It was a senior who used his card because he had gotten frozen or something ridiculous like that. I of course believed him. I don't know why. I can't remember at what point I found out that he lied about messaging the girl on social media. I think it was after I had looked through his phone again and I found text messages between him and his friend that was the one who allegedly sent the messages. His friend said something like, "Bro, I can't even go to parties that your wife is at because she hates me LOL," or something like that. But they both confirmed what I didn't want to believe. My husband had taken my phone, deleted the messages sent to me by the girl, and got his friend in on this elaborate story. I can't remember when I found out that he did in fact download and pay for upgrades on Bumble. I think I just knew at this point he was lying and grilled him long enough that he relented. He said he never met anyone or anything, and he said during the conversation, "I only paid for the upgrade because no one would ever swipe for me," or something like that. I can't remember at what point we went to legal on base and got information to file for divorce. I'd never seen him cry before, besides one other time after we got married at the airport. He cried so hard, and he wouldn't let me see, just hugged me and buried my face in his chest so I wouldn't see. He said he didn't want to leave, but he cried constantly after I told him this was it and that I had an appointment and paperwork filled out to file for divorce. I'd never seen him like this before, constantly saying he was sorry, deleting every social media account he'd ever owned, crying at the drop of a pin, saying things like he will never marry again. I could have everything in our savings. He'd pay for me to finish college if that's what I wanted. I relented and we went to marriage counseling. He stepped up a lot. He was never on his phone anymore, would keep his phone unlocked and face up on the table, told me I could go through it anytime I asked, promised to stop watching porn. He even started cleaning the house and making dinner before I got home from work. He stopped drinking with his friends. It was a complete 180 for a while. The issues started to arise when every little thing would trigger a panic attack. He couldn't hang out with his friends without me freaking out. He began drinking with his friends again maybe a few weeks later. One night, he wasn't home by the time he told me he would be, and I just broke. I ended up in the hospital, and it was just the start of this toxic cycle. He would do something that would trigger me, whether it be drinking with his friends or the occasional YouTube short I would see in his watch history of a half-naked woman with her tits out and bouncing up and down. I would scream at him and berate him and degrade him because I wanted him to feel exactly how I felt. I think marriage counseling eventually helped a lot after the hospital. I finally got my own therapist. She was my best friend. I still text her to this day. I didn't have any friends where we lived. He worked with his friends every day, and every weekend they would all party. I didn't have anyone. My friends and family were back home. I'm shy and have really bad social anxiety, and have always had trouble making friends because I can't seem to ever open my mouth when there's more than 3 people in the room. Whenever he would leave to go anywhere, I felt so alone. I think at 22 our marriage really started improving again. We went on vacation together and were able to work through a lot of issues, and we were able to communicate things we were feeling, and it was amazing. We both felt so hurt, and we were able to find happy mediums on issues and relate boundaries that each of us respected. I was 23 when I moved home a few months before his contract ended. He tied up his loose ends on the house and work, and he moved back home with me. He tried working a night shift blue-collar job, making good money, even more than he made in the military, but he hated it. He hated everything about it. He missed his friends and his job. His friends were his family. This was the first time I'd ever seen him truly depressed. 5 months later, he joined a different branch of the military. I didn't want him to. I wanted him to stay and have a normal life with me. I wanted to work normal jobs and have a family. He doesn't. He said he doesn't even want a family. I had started nursing school, and my best friend, whom I hardly ever got to see, had a baby. I finally had a group of friends and family I was able to hang out with every week. He left and got stationed in a different state, but only about 600 miles away this time, far but drivable. He came home for a visit after only a week of being there. We were doing good at this point, texting and calling a lot. A little over a month ago, he left to go across the country for a 6-week exercise in the desert. He didn't have his phone for most of it, but he was able to text me once over a week ago. He didn't text again after that until I messaged him letting him know that a pet of mine had died. He replied immediately. I've realized that he has had his phone, but just hasn't been talking to me. Yesterday, he texted me in the morning letting me know that he was going to spend an upcoming holiday with an old military friend from his previous branch. And then the holiday after that, he wanted to go see his extended family in a different state. We've talked a lot since then, not about anything good. I've asked why he's pushing me away, and he said he's focusing on his goals. I said I felt like I was being put on the back burner until he was ready to acknowledge me and our marriage, and I tried to tell him he didn't have to be alone and that I would support him. He said, "You can't though. You say you can, but you didn't support college or the CIA, so I kind of felt I should just do this alone and get rid of some of the negativity." And I realized he was right. He brought up college when we were about 21, maybe 22, and I actually scoffed at him because I didn't realize he was being serious. I didn't believe he could do something like that. He barely graduated high school. He went to 4 different high schools total, never getting above a 1.5 GPA. I tried doing his homework to keep him afloat, but he didn't care. I even got him enrolled in the same online academy that I attended due to public school not fitting around my athletic schedule, and I had to do every class and every assignment for him because he would never do them. He ended up graduating from what you would call an alternative high school. After telling me he wanted to go to college, he then told me he was going to join the CIA. This was just unfathomable to me. I didn't know what to do because he wanted my support, but I also didn't want to lie to him and tell him I believed in him. I guess I still don't, and I feel awful, and I can't imagine the feeling of your spouse not supporting you unconditionally. I don't know how to support him in something I just don't think he can do. And now we're here. Neither of us want a divorce. Both of us know our relationship hasn't been the best. We both don't know what to do. I would feel so lost and empty without him. I've known him for more than half of my life. Our personalities are formed around each other. We talk the same, we have the same mannerisms. We experienced growing up together and becoming adults together. I just want to add that these experiences I've listed were the worst times. We've had amazing experiences together. We have so much fun together. He makes me laugh more than anyone else can. He knows everything about me and has been there for every important moment in my life. I'm absolutely terrified of the future. I'm scared to tell my family if we get a divorce. I don't want to be another statistic. I know we got married young. I know we are a military family. I know that most of these marriages ended in divorce, but I really thought we were different. I don't want to start over. I'm almost 24, and I know that's still considered young, but I've known him for 14 years. I thought we would have started thinking about having a family together by now. He just wants to focus on his career and says he doesn't think he even wants a family. I don't know what to do anymore. If you're still here, thanks for reading. I apologize if I'm all over the place. I haven't ever shared all this with anyone. I'm embarrassed of my situation and feel at a loss at what to do anymore. I'm really nervous to read any replies because I think I know what they're all going to say. TLDR, married young, he's in the military. History of infidelity on his part, verbal abuse on my part, and lack of support. We've had successful marriage counseling in the past, but we're at the point where we feel like we want different things, but both of us still love each other and don't want a divorce. Neither of us know what to do. Update 1. After over 1,000 people castigating me in the comments section, I wanted to sort of give an update and answer a few questions. First off, yes, I can in fact type like a monster. I had every intention of creating this post with anonymity, which obviously went down the drain as soon as I started typing. I didn't think this would get more than a couple thousand views and a handful of comments. I typed out every ignominious detail because I needed to see for myself everything in one spot. Someone said I must be exhausting to be around if I tell my friends and family all this. Well, you'll be happy to know that no one knows. I have never told any of my friends and family even a percentage of what has happened. That's why I ended up writing an epic. I wanted someone to know everything and tell me what to do because my brain has become this convoluted, rose-colored type of convoluted mess of, I don't even know. I have made my husband out to be this strong, loving, endearing, charismatic provider, and I know why. I've spent my entire life wanting to be the best at everything. My dad's favorite thing he used to say to me every day after practice was, "Second place is just the first loser," and I held on to that. I was the best. I was the best at school. I ranked number 1 out of my high school class of over 700 people. I have hundreds of medals and trophies. I did take second place at nationals one year, even though that doesn't feel like an accomplishment to me. I know it should be, But after dropping out of college and leaving behind a full-ride athletic and academic scholarship, I wanted it to be worth something. I never told anyone I left because I hated it and couldn't deal with it. I told everyone I got married and he joined the Marine Corps and I wanted to support him. I didn't want anyone to realize that I couldn't hack it. I wanted it to be worth it, and if I had marriage problems or if I got divorced, it would have just been for nothing. I would have lost again, and I can't lose. I grew up hiding in my closet hearing my dad scream at the top of his lungs at my older siblings because they averaged C's and D's in school. I knew what losing would get you, and I would not lose. My mom cheated on my dad when I was a kid. I remember waking up one morning to them screaming on the front lawn. My mom trying to get into her car to go to work, and my dad grabbed her arm and ripped her out of the car. They don't know that I saw that. They worked through it, if that's what you want to call it. I thought that was what you were supposed to do. I thought that marriage was supposed to be hard and you were supposed to put every ounce of yourself into fixing your ups and downs. Many have asked if I want to live the rest of my life like this. Of course I don't. Who the hell would want that? Why did I stay even after the first time? Well, starving people will eat anything. I have actually read every single comment, even the hurtful ones. Goddamn, you guys are brutal, and I needed it. I needed over 1,000 people telling me I'm a blind idiot to realize that marriage isn't supposed to be like this and that I deserve better. Because I do. I do deserve better. And for all those saying I'm not going to leave because I haven't yet, I will prove you wrong. I'm not going back anymore. I'm not going to settle. I had heard the phrase sunk cost fallacy, but I didn't know what it meant. I do now. Thank you to everyone, even the ones who believe this post was a creative writing assignment. It gave me a laugh realizing that my life and my marriage has been so bad that it's unbelievable. Last side note. Yes, I did comment with my main account a few times. It doesn't even matter anymore. And feel free to shoot me a message and tell me I got this because I'm gonna need it. I feel like I've been rug pulled near the edge of a cliff, and I can't find my footing. I don't know where the ground is and when it will come, but I know wherever I land, it will be better than where I am currently. Update 2. Hi everyone. It's been almost a year. I can't believe it's been almost an entire year. I don't think I've ever made an update like this before, so hopefully I do it right and it's not removed. I meant to update sooner, I really did, but I have been busy living my life to the fullest extent possible. I can honestly say I didn't even think it was possible to enjoy life this much. I have never experienced happiness like this. I'm honestly having a hard time putting it into words how amazing my life has become. I filed for divorce probably within 48 hours of making that post. Papers were signed a month later. Divorce was finalized 2 months after that. It was completely uncontested. We shared no assets, no children, thank God. It was actually a lot easier than I expected it to be. Honestly, the hardest part was telling my family, especially my mom. Everyone loved him so much because I unfortunately made him out to be so perfect. It was pretty much a slap to the face for her to find out. I felt awful. She cried for days, but she was so supportive of me. Everyone was so damn supportive of me. I turned 25 soon. I decided to get my nurse practitioner license, so that's the track I'm on right now. I've made an incredible amount of friends this year. If I'm not working, I'm out having fun. I'm always doing something fun every day. I'll try to reply to any comments, but, I'm so busy these days. I have truly begun to find myself and I'm awesome. I am capable of so much and I am brave. I am so brave. I did make one special friend from my original post, Bethany200030. Thanks to you and my best friend Katie. If you guys are reading this, thank you for keeping me accountable and loving me unconditionally. I really didn't realize what a horrendous situation I was in, at least not until after I made that initial post and received so many eye-opening comments. Lots of people were right though. I did already know the answer to my question. It's actually kind of weird thinking about it. It doesn't even feel real. Whenever I try to think about my life over the last couple of years, I can hardly remember anything. It's almost like I'm trying to recall a story that someone else told me. Anything that I do remember, I recall almost like I was a spectator or an invisible third person in the room, and I just think, this poor girl and what she's going through. I can't even imagine how awful. It just doesn't even feel like it was me. My real life started as soon as he was gone. We don't speak anymore. We haven't really spoken much since December. One of the last interactions we had, he was upset about the divorce and regretted it, and then he proceeded to threaten that he would murder anybody that I dated in the future. Yes, it's documented to the best of my ability. I don't think he would ever actually do anything like that. He hasn't even been back in the state this year. I think he's too busy. Last I heard through the grapevine, he got drunk, had a one-night stand, and got some girl pregnant. She wants to keep the baby, he doesn't. I think she even took a brick to his car and smashed the hell out of it. If I could give him one last piece of advice, it would be to start a savings account for this poor kid's future therapy bills, and to ask him if he ever realized that almost all of his monumental life mistakes have been committed under the influence of alcohol. But alas, it isn't my problem. He will never hear from me again, and I can say that with complete happiness and confidence. To everyone who said I wouldn't do it and that I wasn't capable of leaving, EFU and thank you. I did. I did leave. I didn't walk, I ran. I sprinted, and I didn't look back. Thank you, Reddit, for helping me save my life. To anyone who may be going through something similar, you can do it. I believe in you. If I can do it, you can too. The other side is brighter than you could ever imagine. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My dad stole my identity and opened 3 credit cards in my name. He told me that since I'm young, I can do without for a few years. I found that my dad used my information to open 3 credit cards over the last year when I went to get a pre-approval for a mortgage. I was told by the lender they wouldn't be able to give me a home loan because of the defaulted credit cards. They also said I probably wouldn't be able to get a loan from any lender because of it and gave me a sheet of paper explaining what I'd need to do in order to fix it. When I tried disputing the cards, one of which is already in collections, the disputes got closed out as the debts were verified. I told my divorced parents about it and their answers were pretty wildly different. My dad said that these things happen and that I should be more careful in the future with my social security number. Seeing as I've always been careful, that made me pretty mad. My mom said she thinks my dad might have something to do with it since opening credit cards in her name had a part to play in their divorce. She told me he ran up about $50,000 in credit card debt on secret credit cards. A few days ago, I ended up casually telling my dad I'm going to have to file a police report for the credit cards. He told me I probably shouldn't do that because $115,000 isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. When I told him it was keeping me from buying a house, he said I could just wait a few years until they fell off of my credit report. He said it would only take another 4.5 years. When I told him I obviously couldn't wait that long, so I had to file the police report, he straight up told me not to do it and to just be more careful in the future. Once I told him I already got the paperwork together from the credit agencies, he told me he had opened the cards to pay for living expenses over the last year. He said his work slowed down a little bit, but he'd do what he could to help pay it off. He said it would ruin his life if he went to jail. I'm leaning towards going to the police anyway, but I didn't write that minute. I have everything in front of me today to go make the report. I guess I just want to make sure turning it over to the police is the right thing to do here, especially if I'm wanting to buy a house this year. Top comments. Comment 1, report him for fraud, OP. That's what I'm leaning towards. I'm realizing if I want to buy a house, I can't have those accounts on my credit. Comment 2, if he wasn't your dad, you'd have reported him already, right? Well, think about this. Why didn't he give you the same respect and not ruin your credit? Because he's your father. Update 1. I spent about half of the day reading everyone's comments and it pretty much solidified what I was going to do. The process itself was pretty easy. I went to the police department and the person at the front desk had me wait about 10 minutes before an officer came out. We talked for about 15 minutes and he made copies of all of the paperwork I gave him. He told me the case would be assigned to a detective on Tuesday and gave me a pamphlet about how to contact the credit agencies. I was given a report number and was told I could use that now to start disputing the accounts. A detective is going to follow up with me in the next couple of weeks. I asked what would end up happening to my dad, and the officer said it looked pretty clear-cut to him, but the charging decision is 100% with the state attorney's office. He said if they decide to pursue charges, he'll likely get a warrant put out for his arrest. He also said typically if this is his first felony, he's probably going to get some sort of pretrial diversion with court supervision or probation. He probably won't go to jail for years, But if he gets picked up on a warrant, he's gonna spend at least a little bit of time behind bars. I've decided I'm okay with that because it's obvious to me he did this purposefully. He's never been arrested before, so hopefully this is a wake-up call for him. At the same time, he completely did this to himself. I'll update whenever I learn more. Top comments. Comment 1. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Sincerely hope everything works out well for you. P. I think it will. From what I understand, it might take a month or 2 for the cards to come off of my credit, but once they do, my credit score should shoot up. Comment 2. Well done, OP. I was so mad on your behalf reading the first post. It would take everything in me not to use his words against him. Jail time? It's just a few years. You've ruined my life. No, you did it by trying to ruin mine. I hope the marks come off your credit report like it's made of Teflon. Good luck on your home ownership journey. Update 2. There's been some good, a little bad, and a little real bad progress the past few days. The good. I used my report number and disputed every account. When I checked my credit last, which everyone should be doing regularly, the one with the lowest balance was already off of my account. The other cards and the collection account are still showing, but I have hope they'll be falling off in the next few weeks. I also received a call from someone at the prosecutor's office who had a couple of extra questions for me and asked if I would be willing to testify if they charged him. I said yes, and they said they would be making a decision on their charges before the end of the month. The bad. Obviously someone talked to my dad about this because the last time he talked, he scolded me for going to the police and hasn't talked to me since. One of my brothers was also pretty mad at me about it and hasn't talked to me in over a week. The rest of my siblings and my mom understood where I was coming from. The real bad. One of my other brothers, not the one who was pissed, found 2 open credit cards on his credit which weren't his. He checked his credit score for the first time in a couple of years and he said it was down about 150 points from where it used to be. He's now in the process of dealing with that. He doesn't have any positive proof yet that it was our dad, but the fingers are pointing in that direction. This still blows my mind that a dad could do this to his own children. I'm moving forward, though. I still hope to be able to purchase a house before the end of the year. Additional information from OP. Also, I think all of my other siblings, there are 6 of us, are checking their credit too. Probably for the best. Update 3. This is going to be my final update as it seems like this has gone viral and hit a few different big websites. I'm happy to say my credit has completely returned to normal. All of the disputed accounts are now gone. Obviously, I'm excited about this since it gives me a solid financial future. I also received a letter from the prosecutor's office 2 weeks ago, and they said they are going forward with a charge of what is basically identity theft. I spoke with an assistant prosecutor and they explained they'd be putting out a warrant shortly, but that as a first-time offender they'd probably offer a misdemeanor charge and a plea. My dad was arrested last Friday after a traffic stop. He got out of jail the next day and has a new court date in late August. According to the Public Records website, he called me and told me I'm dead to him and to never contact him again. My brother, who found credit cards opened in his name, has made a police report as well, but apparently the addresses are different on the accounts. He was told it was unlikely it would be prosecuted, but he's working on getting them off of his credit. Additional information from OP. Just wanted to give everyone who commented in my other posts a shout out. You have all given me the courage to do this. I'm going to be deleting this throwaway because I really hope to put all of this behind me between the news articles and having no contact with my dad. Don't let things like this sneak up on you. It breaks my heart to do this to my dad, but he did this to himself. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Growing up in the LGBT community, I endured an unhappy childhood marred by mistreatment and harsh criticism from my older brother. When he became seriously ill, I made the difficult decision to leave him. I'm Danny, now 34, and my deep-seated anguish stems mainly from 2 sources. My parents and my older brother, Alex, who is now 38. Our parents, a nurse named Janet and an electrician named Mark, were ordinary in every way except one: their blatant favoritism towards Alex. This favoritism painted the canvas of our childhood with equal strokes, favoring him with brighter, more vibrant colors while leaving my portion dim and faded. Growing up in the modest town of Elmswood, where everyone knew everyone else's business, didn't help. Our small, close-knit community often amplified the discrepancies between Alex and me, as if under a magnifying glass. At school events, neighborhood gatherings, and even in the grocery store, I was Alex's brother, a shadow trailing behind the more illustrious elder sibling. From the earliest days I can recall, Alex was the golden child. Birthdays, which should have been a celebration of life, were the first battlegrounds of favoritism. On my 10th birthday, which fell on a chilly but cheerful October day, I was excited about the party planned at our house. Yet even this day was co-opted by Alex, as our parents had let him decide the theme. He chose superheroes, knowing full well I preferred dinosaurs. He smirked as he paraded around in a Superman cape, while I sulked in a corner, my T-Rex costume feeling suddenly out of place and childish. Christmas was no different. Each year Alex would be the first to dive under the tree, his hands tearing through wrapping paper on gifts that often turned out to be the latest gadgets or toys, things he wanted. My gifts were often practical: clothes, books, or worse, items clearly meant for older kids, which Alex would end up claiming anyway. The injustice of it was like a stone in my shoe, constant and irksome. Our parents seemed blind to the imbalance, or perhaps they chose to be. They praised Alex's every achievement, no matter how minor, and offered excuses for his failures. In contrast, my achievements were met with nods or polite smiles, and my failures were proof of laziness or lack of talent. This disparity extended beyond gifts and celebrations. At dinner, Alex would talk about his day, his plans, his friends, and our parents absorbed every word with eager attention. When it was my turn, their eyes would glaze over, as if they were waiting for a commercial break to end and the main program to resume. This pattern of neglect had a profound effect on me. It ingrained in me a sense of unworthiness and a conviction that I was inherently less lovable than my brother. These feelings were compounded by the whispers of pity or the comparisons drawn by neighbors and family friends, always noting how different Alex and I were, and not in my favor. As we grew older, the chasm widened. High school brought new challenges, bullying being one of them. I was an easy target not just for my peers but, it seemed, for fate itself. Alex, ever the charmer, was popular and athletic. He excelled in sports and had a wide circle of friends. I, on the other hand, was bookish and introverted, often bullied for my quiet nature and the hand-me-downs I wore, many of which had started off as Alex's. One particularly painful memory was during our shared high school years, when I was 15 and Alex 19. It was the day of the school's annual talent show, an event I had been eagerly anticipating because I was to perform a piano piece I had spent months perfecting. I remember walking onto the stage, the nerves dancing in my stomach, only to see Alex in the front row, surrounded by his friends, sneering up at me. Mid-performance, a loud, obnoxious heckle from his direction broke my concentration. I faltered, my fingers tripping over keys in a discordant tumble. The audience's laughter stung worse than any physical blow. After the show, my parents comforted Alex, who feigned innocence and claimed his friends were the culprits. My humiliation, it seemed, was of no consequence. This dynamic persisted into our adulthood. I watched as Alex, armed with a business degree paid for by our parents, climbed the corporate ladder with ease. In contrast, I struggled through community college, juggling jobs to pay for my education, earning a degree in computer science through sheer grit and determination. It wasn't just in the realm of education or personal achievements that the inequality showed. Even in matters of the heart, I felt the sting of our parents' indifference. When I came out as gay at 22, the news was met with a stony silence from my parents and a cruel jib from Alex about not wanting to share a room during family holidays for safety. The pain of that remark was sharper because it went unchallenged by our parents. Now, standing on the threshold of midlife, I find myself dredging up these memories, not out of a desire to wallow in past grievances, but because fate has presented a cruel irony. Alex, the brother who made my childhood a living hell, is now battling a terminal illness. To know more about my story and why my brother got sick, let's go back about 2 months ago. I experienced one of the few moments in my life when I felt genuinely cared for and protected, but it came at a steep price: the death of my grandparents. Their passing marked a significant shift in my life, highlighting the contrast between their loving support and the glaring neglect from my parents. My grandparents had always been my sanctuary. Unlike my parents, who invariably showered my older brother with attention and gifts, my grandparents provided me with something far more profound: unconditional love and acceptance. They were aware of the imbalance in my family, and they did everything within their power to make me feel valued. Whenever I visited them, it was like stepping into a world where I was no longer invisible. They listened intently to my stories about school and my small achievements, which my parents often overlooked in favor of celebrating my brother's latest successes. Growing up, the difference in how my grandparents and my parents treated my brother and me was stark. Unlike my parents, who clearly favored my older brother, my grandparents showered both of us with love and affection, though it always felt like they made an extra effort to compensate for the imbalance at home. My grandparents were the kind of people who believed in fairness and equality. They often tried to gently advise my parents to treat us equally, hoping to bridge the gap that was so apparent. "Treat the boys fairly. They both deserve your love and support," they would say in their calm, wise tones. Despite these conversations, which I overheard more than once, my parents' behavior remained unchanged. Their favoritism towards my brother was as clear as ever, and their ears seemed closed to any suggestion of impartiality. The love from my grandparents was demonstrated in their actions and the small, everyday moments. They were always present at my school events, cheering just as loudly for me as for my brother, if not louder, to make up for my parents' often lukewarm enthusiasm for my achievements. On birthdays, they went out of their way to make sure my gifts and cake were just as grand as what my brother received, if not more so, to subtly balance the scales. Their passing was not only a profound loss of love and support, but also marked the end of the only advocacy I had within my family. It underscored just how much they had done to protect and elevate me, efforts that were both subtle and significant. They knew the challenges I faced and tried in their own ways to shield me, even if it meant standing up to their own children. The day we lost them was a quietly tragic one. They had been involved in a minor car accident, but due to their frail health, they couldn't recover. It happened too quickly and suddenly. I was left without my pillars of emotional support. At the funeral, while everyone else seemed to be whispering about wills and legacies, I was engulfed in a deep sense of loss, mourning not just their death, but the unconditional love they took with them. The reading of the will was a somber affair, and it was there that I learned about the final act of protection my grandparents had orchestrated for me. To everyone's surprise, they had left me their house and a substantial sum of money, $500,000. It was an unexpected turn of events that caused a stir among my relatives, particularly my parents, who had expected that everything would go to my brother, as it always had. However, the most dramatic revelation was yet to come. My grandparents had always known about the preferential treatment my brother received and the manipulative tendencies of my parents. To protect me further, and perhaps teach everyone a lesson about values and deception, they had included a peculiar clause about another sum of money. This was the money my brother believed he was receiving, a hefty amount supposedly hidden in a special envelope. But in reality, this envelope contained nothing but monopoly money. I remember that moment. My parents, who had always shown blatant favoritism towards him, practically glowed with vicarious satisfaction. Their joy was palpable, as if they themselves had won some grand lottery. They whispered excitedly among themselves, already planning how this windfall would bolster our family's finances. Perhaps they did not consider, but secretly hoped, that my brother would share some of his newfound wealth with them. But the joy of the moment was tainted for me. Standing on the periphery, I watched my brother's face light up with greedy anticipation as he tore open the envelope. His voice, dripping with condescension and unearned triumph, cut through the room like a knife. "Finally, something to show for all my patience with this family," he smirked, his eyes not meeting mine, as if I were beneath his notice. It wasn't enough that he had received what should have been my share as well. He had to twist the knife. "Guess this means I can finally get away from all this? Especially you," he sneered, his gaze flicking over me dismissively. The sting of his words was sharp, made all the more painful by my then ignorance that the money was fake. At the time, I believed he had received a real fortune, a fortune that could have transformed my life, which had been anything but privileged compared to his. The dreams I had nurtured in secret of freedom, of modest comfort, of simply being seen as equal, seemed to crumble before my eyes. I felt a deep, sinking regret, not only for the loss of what I thought was my last chance at a better life, but for the bitter divide that money had reinforced between us. His words about my identity were perhaps the most cutting. Ever since I had come out as non-binary, my brother had used every opportunity to belittle and insult me, as if my existence challenged his overly traditional views. "Don't expect me to waste any of this cleaning up your messes," he'd say scornfully, using the wrong pronouns deliberately to sting. "Imagine being so desperate to be different you end up like that." His mockery was a clear reflection of the disdain he felt, mirroring the less overt but equally painful dismissal by our parents. To everyone's surprise, especially our parents, my brother did not linger to celebrate his windfall. The very next day he packed up, his actions as cold and calculated as his departure. He moved in with his girlfriend, who, unbeknownst to him, was more interested in his supposed financial status than in him as a person. Our parents, left in the wake of his sudden departure, were stunned. All those years of prioritizing him, of bending family dynamics to favor him, had culminated not in grateful reciprocation but in abandonment. Their faces, once flushed with excitement, now mirrored the betrayal they felt, a bitter realization that their golden child had fled the nest with no intention of looking back. However, the truth revealed itself dramatically days later. In the wake of my brother's sudden departure to his girlfriend's place, I received a call from him, the first in what would be a series of frantic, increasingly humbled communications. The money was fake. Monopoly money, precisely placed in a real bank envelope. A bitter laughter escaped me as I listened to his choked fury over the phone. The girlfriend, driven by material aspirations, had unceremoniously kicked him out upon discovering the deceit. My brother, now homeless and humiliated, was suddenly devoid of both the financial windfall he had bragged about and the companion he had chosen over his family. This revelation did not soften my heart. Rather, it crystallized the resentment that had been simmering for years. When he showed up at my door, his face a mix of anger and desperation, I felt a cold resolve wash over me. This was the brother who had tormented me throughout my childhood, who had stood by and watched or instigated as others did the same. This was the brother who had never once stood up for me. Not when I was bullied for being different, not when I struggled to find my place in the world. When my brother showed up at my doorstep, it wasn't a simple knock of desperation. It was the culmination of a series of events that had unfolded since he'd been duped by the monopoly money our grandparents had cleverly disguised as his inheritance. According to what he told me before he decided to come here, he had gone to our parents' house, seeking refuge and possibly some financial support. However, the reception he received there was far from what he had hoped. Our parents had always preferred him over me, showering him with attention and gifts throughout our childhood. Yet when he appeared on their doorstep in his hour of need, they turned him away. They believed he had squandered the money, or what he thought was money, on lavish expenditures or perhaps on his girlfriend, who was notorious for her interest in material wealth. He explained that our parents accused him of lying about the money being fake. They thought he was just making up stories to get more financial aid from them. The disappointment was evident in their voices. They felt betrayed that he had not only moved out so abruptly after receiving his inheritance, but had also neglected them since moving in with his girlfriend. In their eyes, he had chosen his new life over family, only to return when he was in trouble. At that time, I was staying at our grandparents' house. I was taking care of the house, living quietly away from the drama that often surrounded my parents and brother. The house was a sanctuary from the childhood memories of neglect and favoritism that still haunted me. When my brother recounted his ordeal, there was a part of me that felt a twinge of sympathy. Here he was, the favored child who had never once considered the impact of his actions or words on others, particularly me, now reduced to seeking help from the sibling he had often ridiculed and scorned. His fall from grace was steep, and his current predicament was a harsh lesson in humility. However, the years of being second best, of enduring his cruel taunts and our parents' obvious partiality, had hardened my heart considerably. He spoke of our parents' rejection with a tone of surprise and hurt, as if it was unthinkable that they would ever turn their backs on him. It was ironic, really, considering how often he had done the same to me, both as a child and as an adult. His narrative was filled with regret and a sense of urgency, but it lacked genuine remorse for the way he had treated me over the years. It seemed he was more upset about his loss of comfort and status than about the possibility of mending our fractured relationship. As he stood there, looking more vulnerable than I had ever seen him, I was faced with a choice. Could I set aside the years of neglect, the memories of birthdays and Christmases where I watched him open presents that should have been mine, the harsh words and the dismissive attitudes? Was I capable of forgiving not just him, but also our parents, who had instilled such disparity between us? I listened quietly, my mind racing with memories and emotions. In the end, my response was shaped not just by the hurt of the past, but by the realization of what I needed to do to protect my own peace. I had built a life for myself here in our grandparents' house, a life away from the constant reminders of my secondary place in our family. Years have passed since I shut the door on my brother, and in that time, the details of his life have faded into a distant haze. I don't know where he lives, nor have I kept up with his goings-on. That is, until today, when a sudden text message broke the silence between us, tearing open old wounds with news of his illness. He was sick, battling a brain tumor, and frequently in and out of the hospital. He couldn't afford the surgery fees and was reaching out for help. The message was brief, almost clinical, but it struck a chord deep within me. It was not just a request for financial aid. It was a plea for familial support, the kind he had denied me throughout our childhood and well into our adult lives. Memories of our past, of his harsh words and cruel actions, surged back with unwelcome clarity. He had always been the favored son, the golden child who received the latest gadgets and unwavering affection from our parents, while I lingered in the shadows, the afterthought in their familial narrative. Now, as he lay in a hospital bed, vulnerable and reaching out, those same feelings wrestled within me once again. Could I deny him help when he was possibly facing the end of his life? Was my resentment so deep that I could look away from a dying man, my own brother, regardless of our torrid past? As I pondered over his request, the scenes of our childhood played in my mind like a melancholy film. There were moments when he could have stood up for me, moments when he could have shared, moments when he could have simply been the brother I needed him to be. But those moments never came. Instead, there were insults, there were dismissals, and above all, there was the clear message that I was less than him, unworthy of the same love and attention he received so freely. His words from our last encounter echoed in my memory. Where were you when I was being bullied? Where were you when I lost my job? Where were you when I got married? Married to my husband. Each question a stark reminder of his absence, of his choice to exclude me, to ridicule me for who I was. And now he needed me. Now, when everyone else had turned their backs, when his charm and money had run out, he remembered that he had a brother. I sat with the weight of his request, feeling the old wounds bleed anew. Was I a bad person for hesitating, for wanting to turn him away as he had done to me? Perhaps. But forgiveness is a complex dance, one that requires more than desperation to lead its steps. As I wrestled with my conscience, I realized that my decision would not just define his fate, but would shape the narrative of who I wanted to be in the face of such profound betrayal. In the end, I chose to respond. My message was simple, devoid of the bitterness that had colored our last encounter. I hope you find the help you need, I wrote. It was neither a commitment nor a refusal, but a boundary set firmly in place. I could not erase the past, nor could I rewrite the hurt that had been inflicted, but I could choose how to move forward, not with malice or resentment, but with the quiet dignity of someone who had learned to value themselves in the absence of familial love. As I sent the message, a sense of relief washed over me. I had responded not out of spite, but from a place of strength. Whether he would interpret it as an act of compassion or indifference did not concern me. I had offered what I could, a gesture of peace to ease my conscience and perhaps mend a bridge long left in disrepair. In stepping back, I found my peace, realizing that being a good person doesn't always mean having to fix everything. Sometimes it simply means doing what you can with respect for yourself and the history that shaped you. My parents' reaction. One thing that happened that I could have predicted was my parents' reaction when they found out I refused to help my brother. Their first approach was through a series of phone calls. I recognized the familiar numbers flashing on my phone screen, and I knew immediately that answering would lead to nothing but a rehash of old grievances and criticisms. So I chose silence, letting the calls go unanswered. But silence was not a strong enough barrier. It merely postponed the confrontation. One afternoon, I heard the determined knocking at my door. Reluctantly, I opened it to find my parents standing there, their faces a mix of anger and desperation. The initial exchange, it was as bitter as I had anticipated. "How could you turn your back on your own brother at a time like this?" My father began, his voice thick with disapproval. My mother chimed in, her words laced with a familiar disdain. "And to think we raised you better, even with your choices." The slight pause before choices and the emphasis thereafter made it clear she was referring to my sexuality, a topic they had never fully accepted. As the minutes dragged on, their anger seemed to dissolve somewhat into a pleading desperation. "He's your brother. He needs your help," my mother implored, her eyes welling up with tears, not just for my brother, I suspected, but for the shattered image of a united family she held dear. I stood firm, though not without inner turmoil. "Look," I started, my voice steadier than I felt. "I understand he's in a tough spot, but why am I always the one expected to make sacrifices? Where was this family unity when I needed support? When I was bullied, ignored, marginalized?" There was no satisfying answer to those questions, and we all knew it. The room filled with a tense silence, a tacit acknowledgement of the many times they had failed to stand by me. Then the conversation turned to the house and the inheritance left by my grandparents, the only real support I had known. My parents knew about the house my grandparents had bequeathed me, intended as a safeguard and a gesture of love, acknowledging the imbalance I had endured throughout my life. "It's a large sum, and the house is valuable. Selling it could easily cover his medical expenses," my father suggested, eyeing me as if gauging my reaction. I sighed, feeling the weight of the decision. "This house is more than just property to me. It's a memorial of the only people who ever made me feel valued and loved. It's not just a matter of money. It's about preserving the one good thing I inherited from a past filled with inequality," I explained, hoping they would understand the depth of what they were asking me to relinquish. The plea turned into more whining and bargaining, but I saw through the desperation to the same old patterns. My parents wanted a resolution that would ease their guilt and discomfort without true consideration for what it would cost me, both emotionally and financially. I'm at a crossroads, truly. Part of me wants to rise above the past hurts and help my brother, who despite everything, is in genuine need. Yet another part of me resists, fueled by years of being sidelined and undervalued. This house, my refuge, symbolizes so much more than a financial asset. It represents my grandparents' recognition of my worth and their desire to protect me, even in death. So here I am, asking for your opinion, torn between the desire to be better than what I endured and the need to protect the legacy that is truly mine. What should I do? Now on to the next story. Story 10. GF's best friend calls her babe, FaceTimes her at 2 a.m., and she wanted to cancel our anniversary trip for his concert. When I finally had enough, she suddenly changed and begged me. I, 28M, have been dating my girlfriend Sarah, 26F, for just over a year now, and while I love her, there's one thing that's been eating at me since the very beginning. Her relationship with her male best friend, Jake, 27M. Jake has been Sarah's ride or die since college, and I knew from the start that they were close, but what I didn't realize was how much it would impact our relationship. I've always tried to be the chill, trusting boyfriend. I don't want to be the guy who's threatened by a platonic friendship, but honestly, it's gotten to the point where I feel like I'm the third wheel in my own relationship. Jake and Sarah are practically inseparable. They hang out multiple times a week, dinners, movie nights, spontaneous late-night drives, and I'm usually not even invited. If I try to join, it's awkward, like I'm crashing their private, joke-filled world that I'm not a part of. It stings, but I tried to let it go for the sake of keeping the peace. But then things started to cross a line. Jake texts her constantly, even when we're together on dates. It's not just casual stuff either. He calls her babe and sweetheart. When I brought this up to Sarah, she laughed and said it was just their thing, and that it didn't mean anything. Apparently, they've been calling each other that for years, but to me, it feels like there's more to it. Who calls their best friend babe when they're in a relationship? Then there was the night I stayed over at her place and woke up at 2 a.m. to find Sarah on FaceTime with Jake. She was giggling like a schoolgirl, whispering so she wouldn't wake me. When I asked her about it the next morning, she brushed it off, saying Jake needed someone to talk to. But what about me? Am I just here as background noise while she stays emotionally tethered to this guy? The final straw came last weekend. Sarah and I had been planning a special weekend getaway for our 1-year anniversary, something we'd been looking forward to for months. But out of nowhere, Jake invites her to a concert the same weekend. Sarah asked me if we could postpone our anniversary trip so she could go with Jake instead because it's a band they both absolutely love. I was floored. Our anniversary, something we'd been planning for months, could just be rescheduled for Jake? It was like I didn't even matter. I told her that this was too much and asked her to set some clear boundaries with Jake. Like no more pet names, no more hanging out one-on-one all the time, and definitely no more prioritizing him over our relationship. She blew up at me, calling me controlling and insecure. She even said, "You knew Jake was part of my life when we started dating. Why are you trying to change me now?" Things got worse when Jake apparently told her that I was being toxic and trying to manipulate her. Sarah is siding with him, saying I'm overreacting and that nothing has ever happened between them. She's now furious with me for giving her an ultimatum when all I really asked for were some boundaries that would make me feel like I'm her boyfriend, not just a side character in her life with Jake. Now Sarah is giving me the silent treatment, and I'm starting to feel like I've somehow become the villain in my own relationship. Am I losing my mind here? I'm not asking her to drop Jake completely, just to prioritize us and respect our relationship. But maybe I've been unreasonable? So, Reddit AITA for asking my girlfriend to set boundaries with her male best friend? Or is this friendship way too close for comfort? Update, October 6th, 2024. Hey Reddit, I'm back with an update, and let me just say it didn't turn out how I expected at all. I first want to thank you all for the amazing support you all have given me. After reading over the comments and talking to some of you guys, I had made up my mind. I was done being second place in my own relationship and I was ready to walk away. But what happened next surprised me. Saturday night, Sarah came over to talk. I was prepared to have the breakup conversation, but before I could get a word in, she told me something unexpected. She had canceled the concert plans with Jake. She said that after our last conversation, she realized how serious I was, and it made her think about everything. She told me she had been selfish, that she had been taking our relationship for granted. She said she'd told Jake she couldn't go to the concert, and instead, she wanted to spend the weekend with me. No distractions, no third wheels, just us. I was honestly shocked. Part of me didn't believe it. For months, I had been asking her to set boundaries with Jake, and suddenly she was doing it. It felt surreal, like a last-minute effort to save something that was already broken. But she seemed sincere. She apologized, not just for the concert situation, but for all the times she had ignored my feelings, dismissed my concerns, and prioritized Jake over us. She admitted she had been blind to how much it hurt me and said she didn't want to lose me. It was emotional. She was crying, and I could see how much it scared her that I was about to walk away. For the first time in a long time, it felt like she was choosing me. But here's the thing. As much as I appreciated her apology, it didn't magically fix everything. I told her that while canceling the concert was a good step, it didn't erase all the hurt. I still felt like I had been competing with Jake for too long, and trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. We ended up spending the weekend together as planned. We didn't go on the big anniversary trip, but we stayed in, cooked together, and had long conversations about everything. Our relationship, Jake, the future. It was a roller coaster of emotions. There were moments where I felt like maybe we could make this work, but also moments where the damage felt too deep to repair. By today, I was emotionally drained. Sarah seemed to think things were heading in the right direction, but I still wasn't sure. I needed space to think, so I told her we should take a break, give each other some time to reflect and see if this relationship was something we both wanted to fight for. She didn't take it well. She cried again, begged me not to go, said she'd prove to me that she was serious about changing. But I needed to be alone to clear my head without the constant push and pull of emotions. So I left. I haven't spoken to her since. We agreed to give it a couple of weeks before we decide anything, but to be honest, I'm still leaning toward ending things for good. Could she really have set boundaries with Jake after everything? I find this hard to believe after months of me begging. I feel like I've already checked out of the relationship, and while her efforts are appreciated, I can't shake the feeling that it's too little, too late. I'll always care about Sarah, but this whole situation has made me realize how important it is to be with someone who values and respects you from the beginning. Someone who doesn't make you feel like you have to compete for their attention. You all think she might have cheated on me with Jake, so Reddit, should I give her another chance? Or should I go through with the breakup? Now on to the next story. Story 11. Am I the a-hole for telling my fiancée that her wedding dress choice is too extravagant and suggesting cheaper alternatives? We are getting married in July of this year. The venue is booked and the wedding is pretty much sorted. Emma has been researching dresses and has a little scrapbook of lots of dresses she likes for ideas but is now looking to buy. All that's left to get is the bridesmaid dresses and her wedding dress. We jointly put aside $10,000 each for the wedding. Everything is paid and we have $6,000 left over, which I think could go towards the honeymoon on top of the honeymoon fund we already had. We aren't the extravagant type at all. Then comes the time for Emma to pick her dress. I know everything is more expensive when it has the term wedding attached to it. What I wasn't expecting was a $950 dress plus a $120 veil. I'm using my dad's old tux he used for his wedding to my mom, just had it taken in a little. Emma can't use her mom's dress as her and her mom both say the style hasn't aged well, which is fair. I had a quick Google around at dresses online and there were so many just like the one Emma wants for like $50 to $100. I'm not trying to get her to cheap out on her dress, but she will literally wear it once. One dress for over $1,000 is just insane. That would fund our honeymoon. I tried to show her some dresses I found on a recommended app called Wish and others on websites, but she was having none of it. She is very slender but apparently wants it specially fitted. It turned nasty unfortunately because I said I refused to drop such a large amount of money on a dress and she argued that she is using her own money for the dress, which isn't strictly true as we are about to marry and our finances will be joined. Then her mom had to get involved. They offered to pay for the dress, but it's not a case of not being able to afford it. It's a dress. There are identical ones online at a fraction of the cost. I thought she would be ecstatic to learn there are identical dresses for a fraction of the cost, but she was really angry and upset. Is there something I am seriously missing? Because after we argued about the dress, Emma has been extremely cold towards me. Then yesterday she said if I want her to cheap out on her wedding dress on her wedding day that she needs to really consider if we're a good match for marriage. I was blown away that she would say that over a dress. I told her she's like a toddler throwing a tantrum over a sparkly toy she can't have. That was a mistake as she left to stay with her parents, who called to tell me I am much more than an A. TLDR. Fiancé can get a similar dress for around $100 with shipping online but wants to blow over $1,000 at a local wedding dress boutique. Am I the A for saying to get a cheaper one online? Edit. Emma found this thread. It was a mistake to post here and I'm sorry I posted our problems on Reddit. IATA of the top replies from OP. Comment 1. But the gowns I found on Wish looked very professionally made and very similar to the one she's picked. Comment 2. I mentioned the secondhand wedding dress store and she said no without even going to take a look. Comment 3. That's not fair. I would never tell her what to wear. She can wear what she wants. It is the absurd price that I'm against. Comment 4. See, I can definitely understand caring about the quality of a dress if it's a work dress or a regularly worn formal dress. I think what everyone's missing is that this will be worn for one day only. Relevant comments. Emma, ask yourself if your fiancé's behavior here is a one-off. There are some concerning things here. His insistence on controlling your purchase made with your money, even if it's funded by your parents. Is he controlling in other ways? Has he ever been insistent on you spending your time and money only in ways he approves of? And does he usually lash out when you don't do what he wants? The way he's resorting to name-calling because you wouldn't capitulate to his demands, calling you a toddler throwing a tantrum, instead of communicating with you respectfully. This is made especially worse by the fact that his demands are unreasonable and stem from a fundamental ignorance about the subject, wedding gown cost, what knockoffs are and why they're a bad idea, etc., and that he's shutting down your attempts to educate him. Does he normally communicate with you openly and respectfully? Does he normally get angry and verbally attack you when you disagree with him? Are you normally able to have conversations with him on difficult topics that are calm, respectful, and productive even when you disagree? Maybe you're both cracking under wedding planning strain and this is an out-of-character moment that you can work through. But maybe this is pointing to a larger pattern. Proceed with caution. Remember, you're about to enter into a pretty intense legal and social contract with this man, and that you're signing up for a lifetime of conflict resolution with this person in particular. The way you both approach disagreement and handle conflict now reflects how you'll be likely to continue to do so going forward. Now may be the time to double-check with yourself if this is the right move. Edit. After reading through the comments, I would also encourage you to look at his behavior here on this Reddit post. His response to new information is not to take it on board and process it, but to double down, plug his fingers in his ears, close his eyes, and refuse to listen. The lengths he'll go to avoid admitting he was mistaken are a bit troubling. It may also be worth asking yourself if there's a reason someone who is so insistent on always being right may have for seeking out a partner who's a decade younger. I'm wishing you all the best and I hope this works out for you. Emma. OP. I thought I'd have a look through the comments to see if anything explained why Emma has blocked me and her phone is ringing through to voicemail. I seriously can't believe people started a witch hunt over a dress. I watched some YouTube videos of wish wedding dresses and yes, wishes are trash. I got it. I was wrong about that site. But to end up blocked because you have all told her I'm abusive and manipulative is just vile. I called her parents' house and the line's off the hook. So if you see this, Emma, call me please. I won't shout, I won't get mad. I just want to end this crap. Get whatever dress you want. I see that I was wrong. I'm sorry. Spelling bad had some whiskey. Can you blame me after this? Edit 2. Based on Josh's newest comment about you blocking him on Messenger, it sounds like you're taking some time and space to think things over. I think that's a really good move. There's a quiz from the Love is Respect project that may help clarify your thinking about whether this is a healthy, nurturing relationship. I hope everything turns out well for you, Emma, whatever you decide to do. There's a whole community of people here rooting for you to be happy. Edit 3. It looks like OP has been banned from AITA. He just sent me a furious, invective-filled PM blaming the sub for what's happening in his personal relationship and reiterating that abusive behavior is normal and fine, so I guess he's learned nothing. According to the PM, Emma's dad just called him and chewed him out, so it sounds like at least she has a strong familial support system. Transcript of the PM. Banned? I'm now banned from AITA. Good riddance. Her dad just called to cuss me the F out. Can you believe? I've been trying to not cuss so I don't get banned so I can at least defend myself. Then banned for no reason. I live in the real world where when people are angry they yell, they save money where they can, and they don't run away and block you. F this all and Emma for believing strangers on the internet over her fiancé of 2 years. Cupcakes__vodka. Emma, if you see this, run for the hills. Men who are almost 40 marry 27-year-olds often because they are manipulative and a woman his age won't put up with. He's too old for you. You are seeing signs of this behavior now. $950 for a wedding dress ain't shit. He is already trying to control and manipulate you in your finances and you aren't even married yet. Don't go through with it. OP. You are a massive A, and she shouldn't marry you. Wow, thanks seriously. She has been keeping up with this thread because she told me not to take it down. She wanted to read the replies and now she's blocked me on Messenger and my calls go to voicemail. So thanks a lot everyone. Couldn't have left it at YTA? Legitimate out for blood mob mentality if ever I saw it. The bride. I will change the name despite his inability to do the same. I don't really care if he sees this, but he isn't subbed to relationships. I literally don't know where to start. My fiancé, I will call Greg. I don't know what came over him. It's completely insane. We are getting married this summer. The argument started over my wedding dress. I picked a very simple and traditional gown that was already discounted as it is an example gown. My absolute idiot fiancé decided to post to a subreddit asking for opinions, or more likely validation, on whether I was being unreasonable. My dress is under $1,000 but will come to around $1,500 with alterations. We have over $7,000 left over in our budget. That's another thing that seriously upset me. That he lied in his post multiple times. I make a much higher salary than him, so we agreed he would put $5,000 towards the wedding and I put in the rest. But why lie? Why ask for opinions if you've skewed the details? I had absolutely no problem with this as he makes just above the minimum wage. The thread got way too much attention. I had already gone to my parents because I was angry about him calling me immature and shouting about me being spoiled. I also happened to find the thread shortly after he made it because not only did he use my real name, his throwaway was his real name followed by his alarm pin. He sent me a text saying that he wasn't the A in this situation and I just knew he would post it on Reddit. It's not the first time he's posted on Reddit about stuff, but nothing of this magnitude. Anyway, I don't know what to do. There are people online now claiming to be me and it's been shared on Twitter and Facebook and I'm just absolutely mortified. He got totally hammered last night and called my parents. My dad had to hang up on him because he was screaming down the phone and my mom was disgusted. I can't get my money back on the venue or anything. I recently started taking antidepressants because I've been feeling low, but now I just feel empty. This whole thing was about the cost of my dress and he suggested I use the Wish app to get an identical gown. First, he refused to listen to me saying that Wish is garbage, but he also argued it to death in the comments. I read every single comment in that thread and it was like being punched in the gut. I can't get over the odd lies either. He gave out my real name and his but lied about the age gap and budget. I am 23, he is 43. Admittedly, he looks much younger and for the first few weeks dating I thought he was in his early 30s. We also have only been together a year, not 2 years I think he said, and I'm starting to think this was all too fast. I need help. I need advice. I know I'm quite possibly pot-calling the kettle by posting to Reddit, but I post here a lot usually anyway and all the fake accounts claiming to be me might throw him off anyway. I might be slow replying as I start working in an hour. Thanks all. TLDR. Fiancé posted to Reddit to get opinions on the price of my wedding dress but used my real name and it all blew up. People are creating fake accounts pretending to be me and he has devolved to calling me names and getting drunk and calling my family. He also lied about a lot of details in the post. How do I handle this calmly? 3 months later to ex-fiancé. I made a post a few months back. I was going to be married and long story short, things were called off. She wanted to end things, I didn't, and I feel like I've lost all of my trust in women. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I was dating someone called Isabel until last week. She's really amazing and kind, but the second she heard about my ex and the fiasco that surrounded it, she ghosted me. And it becomes a pattern at some point, no matter how close we get, they hear about it from a friend, it comes up somehow, and they bail. I just want to know how to behave or what I can do to make things work. My last GF, Casey, when she broke up with me, she said that I hadn't changed from who I was when my fiancé left me. But I have. I hardly drink at all now, my job is steady and I'm a good guy, but I think the issue is that I'm suffering from small town syndrome. Everyone knows everyone here. Backwards little town it is. Please give me advice on putting this behind me. I am honestly desperate. My life was about to move towards a phase and now I'm stuck in limbo. I need a girl to fill that place so I can move forward with my life. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.